Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Source Comic Boom collaboration. It's your DC Spotlight for the week of November 21st, 2023. Happy Thanksgiving to all those in America. I know our friends north of the border have theirs in October,
Certainly.
but we're partaking this week. And yeah, it was a solid week, pretty big week. But overall, I thought it was pretty decent. What do you think, Rocky?
Yeah, I thought it was decent too. Maybe there's a couple of what I will call maybe a stinker here or there, but for the most part, I this is another good week. This is probably the two weeks in a row. Last week I was quite happy last week, and this week I'm more on the happy side as well. So this is a nice way to sort of end the year, and since we've alluded to before, we're fortunate enough that we get some preview copies for the until the end of for most of December. I think we're going to be ending 2023 on a higher note for DC than last year. So, I get all smiles at this point. Mostly smiles.
Yeah, mostly smiles. Yeah. So let's kick it off with Jay Garrick, The Flash, issue number 2. This is from writer Jeremy Adams. Diego Orlatuga is the artist. Luis Guerrero on color. Steve Wands on letters. Got off to a good start last issue. This one, I wouldn't necessarily say it was a downturn, but it felt a little bit more of a transitional issue. We see Judy Garrick trying to sort of settle into modern times, and it's that fish out of water kind of story that we've all seen time and time again. I will say that it's very apparent, and in a way there's almost the subtext of sadness when you see Jay and Joan Allen, and they're worried about their young daughter. She's teenage years, maybe early high school years, and they look so old. They look like they
Yeah.
should be grandparents, if not great grandparents, and it really kind of underlines the fact that they missed out on so much of their time with her. There's that, which is not the best when you're supposed to be kind of upbeat DC, what have you, but it is what it is. This is the sort of the timeline and the storyline that they set up. So overall, it was enjoyable. It's Jeremy Adams, so it's relatively lighthearted. The Orlatuga art is really strong, especially in the action scenes. But he does have a little bit of a thicker line than I might necessarily like in a Flash comic, only because when you're dealing with characters that have super speed as their power, a thinner line helps to make it feel lighter, and it makes things feel like they're moving faster and a little more kinetic. Um, but I will say that the color work over his line work is done very, very well. So that helps sell this feeling of a little bit of timelessness, a little bit of that golden age classic superhero feel that you get in the book. So a shout out to Luis Guerrero about the colors. So overall, relatively strong. What are your thoughts, Rocky?
Well, I it's funny you should mention it's sometimes our thoughts are on the same path. If there's one thing that I was a little surprised by Jeremy Adams here is I'm surprised, and I know this is only the second issue, so maybe this is coming, but I the age of Jay and Judy Garrick, Jay Garrick and his wife, and they're so old. I mean, they're literally. I mean, Jay Garrick has his age prolonged. I mean, he's actually like he's got to be over 100, really, when you think about it. It's 2023. The guy should be dead. I think the only reason I think there's an in-story JSA explanation somewhere in DC's past that there was an adventure that extended the lives of the ages of the members of the Justice Society. I mean, he's old enough not just to be grandpa, but the great grandpa of somebody who's now his daughter, who suddenly they're just remembering. There is absolutely an element of tragedy to this, and yet Jeremy Adams does find a way to sort of bring the fun and the joy to this. And so I'll give him that credit, especially with this Robert. Not only are the memories that Judy Garrick has of her parents coming back to her more and more, but same thing that is happening with Garrick, Jay Garrick and his wife themselves. And not only that, it looks like some of their villains, like this Robert character, is also coming back. So there's a rewriting of sort of a revamping slash rewriting of DC Golden Age history here, done in a very clever way because all this was wiped, just like with Jeff Johns bringing back the Lost Children. And we're going to be undoubtedly we're going to be pivoted to do new kinds of adventures. That's kind of what's happening here with Jeremy Adams, and I think Jeremy Adams is very cleverly sort of creating a new past or a new history. And there's so much more about young Judy Garrick that we probably don't know. Now it's going to be revealed here. There's a great scene. There's great scenes in this particular issue with Judy going shopping for the first time. You can imagine she's a girl from the 1940s, and then all of a sudden, seeing the modern day malls and going with Stargirl shopping. I mean, sure, that's got to be a pretty big deal for her. And then the shopping is interrupted with her father sort of looking in on her. I was a little bit surprised that Jeremy Adams scripted that. Judy's all upset that her father is like following her. It's like, well, you just sort of remembered each other. Is it really that? Would she really be that upset if her father is following her to the mall just to check out on her?
100% she would. 100% she would be that upset. Jeremy has young daughters. My daughter's a little older than Jeremy's daughters, but yeah. As fathers of daughters, yes. 100%. She would
mine's
be
only 9 years old. She hasn't reached that point yet. But anyways, obviously that's a minor nitpick. It's very clearly she's out with Stargirl. She wants to have some fun, but Robert interrupts that. And how is this Robert villain connected to the villain that caused all this time dysfunction to begin with, causing them to lose the memory of their daughter and what have you? That's yet to be determined. This was largely an issue that was, I think this is still sort of still setting up the mystery, setting up the relationship, showing Judy Garrick in this new 21st century world. And but there's still, I'm still looking for those character moments where there has to be at some point some realization that, hey, I mean, how long do they have to live? 10 years? I mean, before they drop dead? I mean, how long? Again, there's such a huge age gap here, and I'm wondering how that's going to be done. But again, that is a nitpick because at the end of the day, this is a fun comic. The art works. It is brightly colored, and I am curious to see what the in story is, what the history is that Jeremy Adams has set up for this first arc.
Yeah, and I do think about, we mentioned when we were reviewing Flash, Jeremy even wrote one of the issues with his daughter. Editor said it was fine, whatever. Then it came time to put it out and give her credit. And DC Legal's like, oh, hold on a second. Nobody thought to talk to legal. So I say that to say, yeah, I'm sure I haven't talked to Jeremy about it, but I'm sure there's a personal aspect to it. In terms of it's Jay Garrick, it's his daughter. I'm sure Jeremy's drawn on his own relationships with his daughters when he's writing it. So, all right, moving on. One of the, I don't want to say controversial. What's the right word? I guess opinions are divided on how Tom King's Wonder Woman is being received. Some people really love it. Some people are like, here we go again, Tom King, everything's doom and gloom. But I'm really enjoying it, and there's sort of a tongue-in-cheek aspect to what Tom King is doing here. So Wonder Woman 3, written by Tom King, Daniel Sampere is the artist, Tomeu Morey on colors, Clayton Cowell on letters. I'm going to let you start, Rocky, and then I'll kind of expand on what I was starting to say about the varied opinions of this book. So what did you think of issue 3?
I enjoyed this. I'm happy to report, or rather, happy to report. I'm happy for myself that I'm enjoying this because I really wanted to enjoy it. I got to say, because it would be very difficult for me to hide any need to rant because the one comic book that I've reviewed the most of in my small YouTube channel is Wonder Woman. I used to review it exclusively for a number of years. That's what I really started out doing. And I always loved ranting about Wonder Woman. And there was always something to rant about because few writers get it right, quite frankly, and yet I continue to rant about it. But I enjoy this. What Tom King continues to do here is rarely has another writer, in my view, there has been other writers that have done this, but Tom King has, I think, very appropriately and effectively shown Wonder Woman to be very, very powerful and very, very wondrous, dare I say the word. And she is powerful. And she's portrayed in a way that is deeply respectful. And there's reverence for her. And well, this storyline is such that an entire country is being manipulated by the sovereign, and they're being manipulated in terms of the media and in other ways to look down to judge the Amazons for what appears to be a rogue Amazonian attack against exclusively men in a bar in Midwestern America. And clearly there's a setup here, and Wonder Woman is investigating. She's looking for Emily, this rogue Amazon that apparently did all this. She's investigating it, and she wants to. This entire issue again continues with the narration, with the narrator being the sovereign. And I'll talk about the narration in a moment. But this narration of the sovereign, again, it takes place. It's the entire issue is more or less narrated as the sovereign talks about Wonder Woman, talks about he's talking to Trinity, and as he's narrating the story, the events of the issue play out as Wonder Woman enters this big, huge corporate building, taking the elevator up to approach Sergeant Steele. And there are so many interesting little plays. There's moments where she's in the elevator. There's an individual in the elevator, a bodyguard or a security guard that sees it's Wonder Woman. She's not supposed to be there. They're not even supposed to know that Sergeant Steele is in the building because it's top secret. Of course, she's Wonder Woman. She knows, but she's not going to play their little games. There's an undertone of dare I say, I pick up an undertone of condescension in Wonder Woman's voice, and that might be too harsh a word, but she's clearly amused by these efforts that these top secret officials, particularly Sergeant Steele and even Steve Trevor, she calls them adorable all the time. And I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with Wonder Woman phrasing it that way, but that's what she says. She finds it adorable that Steve Trevor actually thinks that she's being fooled, that she doesn't know that they're being spied upon. She finds it adorable that Sergeant Steele thinks that she's as foolish or as naive as he imagines her to be and the Amazons to be. And she very clearly is quite above. She knows what's going on, and she confronts Sergeant Steele on it. And meanwhile, meanwhile, I got to be careful here because I'm being extra careful only because I have, yes, I don't want to give away because I did a sneak peek at issue 4. So let's just say that the conversation that Wonder Woman has with Sergeant Steele, not necessarily a heck of a lot happens in this issue, but what does happen is Tom King focuses on the use of Wonder Woman's power, of her power set. We saw her use the magic lasso. We saw her graceful movements, and thanks to the amazing art by Daniel Semper, here in this issue, she uses her tiara as the weapon. As she throws it out of the elevator, it takes out the security guards. She confronts Sergeant Steele, and there's a major revelation here, and the major revelation being that the blood of Emily, there was some blood of Emily that was at the crime scene where she had attacked the men in the bar, and the blood of the Amazon appears to be that of a pregnant woman, which immediately must make readers wonder, well, is Trinity actually the daughter of Wonder Woman? Is Trinity potentially the daughter of Emily? Maybe Trinity isn't. And because as Sovereign is mentioning this to Wonder Woman, or as Sergeant Steele reveals this to Wonder Woman, the Sovereign is telling the story to Trinity, and Trinity herself, the older Trinity, appears to be surprised by this. And so, yeah, I thought that was quite. I loved it. I really enjoyed the issue. I loved how majestic Wonder Woman appears. I love the way that Tom King is scripting her. Her voice is still maybe a little bit too condescending in some ways, but I still like it better than her voice has been for years, quite frankly. I like it. She's being respected in a way that few other writers have, at least in my memory. I like it. I choose to like it that way. One quick comment on the backup. I guess I'll talk to the backup after say your thoughts about the main story proper before we get to the backup. I don't want to jump ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? You talk about sort of the inherent condescension in her voice, and I kind of liken it to Superman, right? Like Superman being so powerful, and really, when you think about it, and the story's been done to death, what if Superman were evil? Mark Waid did a fantastic job with that concept in Irredeemable from IDW a while back, or was it Boom Studios, I guess. But anyway, yeah, there's this idea of Wonder Woman being the male equivalent of Superman, and if you think about it in those terms, how well does it work, and is she really holding back? And that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about somebody who was raised as a warrior, and in a lot of respects, there is that aspect to her that she should be a little bit condescending, right? She is really, that much better than everybody else, to some degree. And so, I think in a lot of ways that is how it should be, because she's Wonder Woman. Um, but kind of along with that comes this idea of it's sort of it's sort of funny. There's this tongue in cheek sort of way that she has talking. There is a little bit of condescension, but here's the thing, right? The people that she's being condescending to, Sarge Steel, the kind of the minions of the Sovereign, and those sort of people, we're in on the joke, and what comes across is, yeah, she's condescending to them, but guess what? They deserve it. They
Yeah,
deserve it, and we're on her side.
yeah,
We get to kind of ride along with her and go, you know what? You guys are scumbags. Sovereign, you're a scumbag, and so in that way, it's kind of fun, right? It's fun, and so yeah, for me, this is really working. The art by Daniel Sampere is absolutely fantastic. If there's anything about it that maybe isn't quite as um, that doesn't work quite as well for me, it would just be the idea of it's a little choppy. It's a little choppy. Like but when you think about it, we're covering an awful lot of ground here. And I talked about it in the first issue. The Wyoming massacre or whatever it's being called. There is an aspect to it that's not as that's not what's the right word. It doesn't play out really simply. Like King had to make a choice. It is super impactful. We talked about the fact that, okay, this event happens, and then in almost what seems to be no time in the comic, Congress has passed these laws, and all the Amazons have to get out and all that thing, and it moves along very, very quickly, and it feels sort of choppy. But at the same time, like if you had it sort of play out in a little more of kind of real time, then we're 8 issues in, and people are going, God, is it, what's going on, and the political back and forth, and whatever. So I kind of think he was forced to make a choice, and really say, okay, I have to move at a little bit of a faster pace. Um, so it has felt sort of very self-contained for the 3 issues that we've had, sort of focusing on different aspects of the story. And it hasn't necessarily come together for me yet. I mean, it's still very, very good. But when I look at something like Danger Street, right, with all these disparate characters and disparate parts, and that has flowed so well, seemingly in a way that would sort of be antithetical to the disparate characters. Like you wouldn't think that would be able to flow so well from one issue to the other with the Dr. Fate helmet narrating and whatever. But then you come over to this, and it's just Wonder Woman that it's focusing on. And you could argue, well, it's the Sovereign and it's politics and that sort of thing, and it's not flowing as well. And the other part of it is Wonder Woman, less so in this issue, but certainly in the first issue, and a little bit more in the second issue, less than here. So it does seem like the spotlight is turning. If you look at issue 1 to issue 2 to issue 3, the spotlight is turning more to Wonder Woman. But I think that's also sort of a product of the fact that these have been narrated by the Sovereign. So we're getting his point of view rather than Wonder Woman's point of view. But it does feel a little bit like, even though I mentioned that condescension and it feels like we're riding along and we're in on the joke with Wonder Woman, this doesn't feel like a Wonder Woman book in the terms of she's the star. It does feel like she's almost a guest star in her own book, because we're almost viewing her from the outside. We've had sort of little insight to what Wonder Woman herself thinks about the extradition act, and we only get what we can glean from when she's talking to Steve or when she's talking to Sarge Steele.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of interesting. Like I know comics, for whatever reason, they don't do thought bubbles anymore. A lot of times what you would get in a thought bubble is in a dialogue box for exposition or whatever. But like I said, that's all coming from the Sovereign's point of view. So it's an interesting take that for Tom King to, you talk about him getting Wonder Woman's voice right, but we're not really getting much insight into like her actual inner thoughts. So that's another part of it. And the fact that she feels a little bit like a guest star. So, this is not to say that this is perfect. But there could be a reason, there could be a payoff later on. This is the reason that King's doing it, in this way. Either way, technically, it's a very well put together book. Like I said, the art is absolutely fantastic. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it as well. You mentioned the backup. That's written by Tom King as well. Belin Ortega is the artist.
Yeah.
This is it's a really fun romp here. It's we saw what was in Wonder Woman 800 was the first time we really saw Trinity in story. She clearly had prior relationship and interactions with John Kent and Damian Wayne. We see the early interactions now. We're talking about the son of Batman, the legitimate son of Batman in terms of biological son, the son of Superman, the daughter of Wonder Woman. So it's the next generation of heroes. It makes sense they'd all come together. So John and Damian are supposed to be babysitting. Lizzie's clearly a handful. It goes about as well as you would expect. You forget about the fact that these three people are superheroes, and just talk about two teenage boys having to watch a very precocious 8 or 9 year old. Things are gonna go sideways. It's worth the price of admission just to see Lizzie literally kick the crap out of Killer Croc. And, I saw that scene and I was like, man, just how strong is this person? There's some assumption that it's Steve Trevor as the father. If it is, in fact, Diana's kid at all, because like Rocky said, we find out in the main story that supposedly Emily's pregnant. So immediately your thought goes to, is Lizzie actually Emily's daughter? I mean, you can't help but think that. But either way, I'm really enjoying the backup. We'll get more of these. Tom King mentioned on social media that he's enjoying writing these backups as well. And one thing about the art, Belén Ortega, this art is a little softer than I've seen her work before. It feels like a little more of an animated style, which I think sort of suits the fun-loving aspect of the story. So overall, I was really impressed with the backup. And again, I think that Tom King's getting the voices of these characters down, especially when it comes to a very young Lizzie, and we're getting kind of this sense of her personality. We saw her in Wonder Woman 800. I mentioned that she wasn't very likable at all. And so we're getting kind of the roots of that, right? Like she's just like this supremely confident person, even at this very, very young age. I mean, when I say 8, she might be 5 here. I mean, she's very young. So yeah,
well,
great job.
It says a few years from now. So I honestly don't think she could be more than 3. I mean,
that's
a few years.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's entirely 3 or 4. Yeah, entirely.
Yeah,
possible.
I don't know. I mean, you might be right. But
definitely no older. Yeah, no older than 5. I wouldn't think. Alejandro Sanchez is on colors and Clay Cullen letters. I want to make sure I give them credit as well. So yeah, what are your thoughts on the backup?
Before I get to the backup, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that the lasso of lies was used by the Sovereign in this issue in the main story.
Oh, that's
At the lasso, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention it. He does use the lasso of lies to manipulate, and it appears that the power that the lasso of lies has is that whatever that the sovereign can impose whatever truth he wants on someone else. He can tell you what your truth is. He can force other people to believe in a lie, and he does that to one of the soldiers that was involved in the attack in the battle against Wonder Woman when the U.S. military battled Wonder Woman. And it's I thought a well scripted conversation, and I think people should check it out. Check out this issue; they'll enjoy it, and it really shows the power of the sovereign and the power of the lasso of lies. To not, and all you need to do is manipulate and create a lie with one person, and you can influence the media, as we all know you can, and that's exactly what happens in the main story. And I think it's very, very effective. And you talked about how this reflects our real world sometimes in disturbing ways, political and otherwise. I think it's very effective in the main story. But so I
Yeah.
just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I did when I read it. I wanted to remember to speak on that. Like the word that came to mind when you see what the sovereign does. First of all, the misogyny is just completely off the charts, right? Like this guy's just constructing complete fallacy and fantasy, whatever. And the thought that came to my mind about what he's doing is, you know, on the heels of this guy's a total scumbag, is this is such a despicable act, like and so selfish. Like I don't know. It's just hard for me. I've never really had that. It goes back to like early things, and I won't get into the details of it, but kind of my formative years. Why I'm not really misogynistic at all. But I know it's simply a matter of the world that we live in, the world that it's been a misogynistic world just based on history. The world history is full of misogyny, so it's to be expected when you have a character like the Sovereign. But yeah, just despicable, just completely disgusting. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I wanted to mention it. So.
But a quick note on the backup here. I'm gonna probably sound. I'm kind of curious, like, because I'm gonna go on a little bit of a rant here about the backup because I'm a little bit frustrated. Tom King he actually tweeted today or yesterday. I never looked at the date of the tweet. He says that the backups here, he compared them to Calvin and Hobbes. That's what he feels. They're like doing a Calvin and Hobbes comic strip is what he feels like he's doing in writing these backups about a young Trinity with the Super Sons. But I actually feel I feel this would have been so better served had these backups not exist, and these backups consisted of stories addressing more of the main story proper. Because I don't think we need these stories now. I think these backups take away from the suspense of the main story. I mean, now I'm more inclined than ever to believe that Trinity really is the daughter of Wonder Woman. So it's definitely not the daughter of Emily. So the big possible misdirection in this issue has completely had its potential effects taken right out from under us. Plus, if Trinity is in fact the daughter of Emily, that's a lie that goes right up there with the Batman non-wedding that occurred. So what's the bigger lie? The fact that the wedding never occurred, or the fact that maybe Trinity isn't the daughter of Wonder Woman? I don't know. Maybe I'm just making a mountain over a molehill here, but I personally, as much as I like the feel and the fun aspects of this backup. I don't feel. I thought it didn't quite fit the tone of the main story proper. I like the story. It's in the spirit of Super Sons. I like the Trinity. I like her as a young woman here. Pardon me, a young girl interacting with Damien. I just feel that it's a little bit out of place. I would almost have these stories collected maybe 4 or 5 months from now. Once we get the first 12 issues of this Wonder Woman arc out of the way, I would have liked to maybe have this own series. So I think the timing of these stories is a little bit questionable. I feel like DC is trying to force Sinister Sons down our throat a little bit too quickly. They're so desperate to capture the Super Sons again, and now we're getting these backups so quickly. I feel that they're too afraid we just found out Wonder Woman might have a daughter. We're not even done the main story yet. Just slow down a little bit. But so I feel a little bit mixed about it. But there's my rant.
Yeah, I take your point. So I don't. I mean, the fact that we already got the jump ahead, story in Wonder Woman 800. I don't mind us getting the stories of Lizzie as a little kid. But I agree with you about the disparate tone. Now, this is nothing new. We had the young Diana stories that didn't fit in at all, or what have you. Like, Are they trying to recapture Super Sons? We know they have Sinister Sons coming. Yeah, they probably are. I would be more interested in reading. I don't know what you call it. You can't just call it Super Sons if you have Lizzie, but I would be. I mean, I'm looking forward to more of these backups because I like the dynamic between these three characters. Would I like it in its own book? Yeah, I probably would. I probably would prefer it in its own book because you're right. It doesn't fit the tone with what we're getting in the main story, which is so mature with political themes and what have you. Um, but I don't know. Maybe they're worried about putting out too many books. Well, no, they're not. We have 14 this week alone. So, anyway, let's move on. Next up, we have Batman Off-World. Jason Aaron writing Batman for the first time. Pencils are by Doug Mahnke. Inks by Jaime Mendoza. Colors by David Barron. Did I say letters? Does it say letters? No, there's no letter credited. So, don't know who does the letters.
Mendoza or Baron?
No, Mendoza's inks and colors are by David Barron. So yeah, I'm not sure. Anyway, so this I wasn't really looking forward to it. Not that I thought it would be bad. Jason Aaron, you kind of wonder what he's going to do. Doug Mahnke, his art for me, sometimes it feels like he over renders things. There's a little too much detail or what have you. But we're drawing aliens, so who's to say if aliens are going to have extra lines on their face or not? They're aliens. So this is some of the best artwork I've seen from Doug Mahnke in a long time. His Batman is very brooding. If you're wondering when this takes place very, very early in Batman's career. What the hell's he doing in outer space? Well, you know how we talk about the power creep with Batman and how Batman is just so great at taking punishment. He's such a great fighter. Jason Aaron has come up with an absolutely fantastic idea. Now, if you've been listening this far, you know we spoil things, but if you want to be surprised, and I feel like there's a lot of worth in picking up this book and having no idea what it's about other than Batman's not on planet Earth. Maybe skip ahead a little ways and don't listen to our review about this. But this is just the idea that Batman, while trying to clean up Gotham City, and this is in the first, again, year 1, year 2, comes across this Irish gang who has as an enforcer an alien that's stuck on Earth, and they have him as an enforcer, and he beats the shit out of Batman, for lack of a better term, right? This is Batman. He's been around the world. He's been training. He wants to be the best fighter, the perfection of sort of human physicality. And when he gets the crap kicked out of him, he's like, well, I need to be better. How do I get better? Well, I need to go out and figure where this alien came from and find out how it was trained and go through that training myself so that then I will be better. So that's what he does, right? He uses some of the billions he has with Wayne Fortune. He buys his experimental shuttle from Star Labs, and he just launches it off to whatever galaxy he's supposed to go to, goes into suspended animation, whatever, and ends up exactly where he wants, which is on this ship where they basically go around kidnapping other sentient life forms that they then sell to this coalition that mines, ore and resources and what have you. And they have, really great fighters. They have robot fighters. They have alien enforcers that are fighters that are in armor or whatever. So Batman's out there purposely getting the crap kicked out of him to learn how to be a better fighter by these aliens. And the only really alien species that we've seen so far that I really recognize, there's a Temerian there, like Starfire or Blackfire. And yeah, he's out there. He's out there, like, just launches himself out there. Like, no, how are you going to get back home? I'm not thinking about that. I'll figure that out. I'm Batman. But this is not far. It's not a situation where, I mean, don't get me wrong, right? Batman jumping from the moon, we've talked about how crazy that is. But when you stop and think about Bruce Wayne and his obsession with being the best and needing to be perfect and, do everything within his power to fulfill his vow and his promise that he made while kneeling down next to the bodies of his dead parents, you can completely understand that he would do that he would make this decision. Does it make sense, like, logically? No, not really. It's the power creep thing. It's absolutely crazy. We sort of saw it in, I can't remember, I think it was Batman Brave and the Bold. Was that what it was? Where Bruce was having Alfred beat on him, and we were like, why is he just having Alfred beat on him and punch him, whatever? He's doing the same thing, but these
Yeah.
are aliens that could like punch him so hard he would die. But he doesn't die; he just suffers. But then we're supposed to believe that he like heals without any like medical care or whatever. I mean, again, you got to take it all with a grain of salt. But is it fun? Hell yeah, it's fun. Is Doug Mahnke's art just fantastic and perfectly suited for all these aliens and this action and this just completely over the top situation? Yeah. Is David Barron do his colors just jump off the page? Yes. Uh, yeah, I can just imagine, and it comes through in the story how much fun Jason Aaron had writing this. Like, again, I had no idea. I purposely, like, I saw Aaron was writing a Batman story. I saw it was called Batman Off-World, and I purposely did not read any solicits. I didn't want to know anything about it. I wanted to go into it cold. I did. And it just had me smiling the whole time. And part of my enjoyment of it is me thinking, well, this is so ridiculous, right? Like, the fun that I couldn't really enjoy Batman jumping from the moon, I just couldn't accept that. That's, as far-fetched as that was. This is just as far-fetched in a lot of ways. But for some reason, I'm able to accept this. Like, this is just working for me because it is so fun. Maybe it's because it's not a singular event. It kind of is transcendent in that it's, Zdarsky put stuff in his story when that happened or whatever to try to make it seem like it could really happen when he's talking about the angle of re-entry and all that stuff. Like, Mankey doesn't bother, or Aaron doesn't bother with any of those kind of, okay, let's make this realistic, whatever. No, he's just like, no, Batman bought a shuttle, shot himself out there. He's out there. He's fighting aliens. He's learning the whole time. Not so different than what Midnighter does with his, computer brain when he's fighting people and he learns their techniques. This is Batman, but it's Batman. Supposedly he's doing this and he's still human. He doesn't have any superpowers. Man, it was just so fun. I just was smiling the whole time and kind of laughing to myself. That's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous, but it's so Batman. When we talk about the Batman, of current DC, where the power creep is a thing. But I just enjoyed the hell out of it, man. It was so much fun. It was so much fun. What'd you think?
I love this, and I got two very, very familiar vibes when I read this. It reminded me of William Mesner Loeb's Wonder Woman in Space run from Wonder Woman's Volume 1, issue 68 to 74, I think it was. During that run, there's that famous Brian Boland cover, issue 72 of Wonder Woman, where she's standing in front of the shield and everything. But Wonder Woman in Space, where she utilizes all of her powers, all on everything she is to inspire women on a slave planet to rebel. A lot of bondage covers. It was, anyways, but it was a fun. How often do you see Wonder Woman in space? You don't see Wonder Woman in space very often. So cool to see. I also got a little bit of a vibe of the original John Byrne War World run, where Superman's sort of out of his element too. He's on War World again. More of the Mesner Loeb vibe in Wonder Woman, and I got reminiscent of the original War World saga, and then Batman here in Off-World. This is just, I mean, the fact that Batman, I mean, good God, the guy doesn't need to be possessed by the Batman of Suriname or Barbados. I mean, the guy is already normally insane to literally to be so pissed off that you want to take down an opponent. The only way you can do it is that to spend $579 million to buy a spaceship to fly in near a homeworld that is similar with an alien species as the alien villain that pissed you off on Earth, just to learn how to beat the crap out of him. And what I love about this is that Jason Aaron, he actually takes a concept, because how many stories have we gotten? Chip Zdarsky gave us a story about a young Bruce Wayne learning how to be Batman. But, it's never really been asked, to my knowledge, and I'll stand to be corrected by anyone who wants to leave a comment, that, how does Batman learn how to fight aliens? How does he learn how to do that? I mean, he traveled all around the planet Earth and learned how to beat the hell out of human beings and be a great detective. But it sort of begs the question, well, what happens if you fight an alien whose kidneys are located where his heart is, or his liver is located near his cheekbone, or some crazy thing? And that's where this is going. He needs to learn to be a better hero. He needs to learn how to defeat all different types of life forms. And this is sort of Batman's education in regard to the various alien life forms in the DC universe. And if this has been done before, please somebody send me in the direction. But I think this is, as simple as this story is, it's kind of an inspired idea, and it feels new to me. I'm trying to remember the last time I read something where Batman is on another. I mean, and this is so Batman. Leave it to Batman to. He doesn't want to escape. No, he wants to stay on this ship and learn how to fight all these aliens by this with this robot teaching him how to box. Not that he doesn't know how to box, but this alien's going to teach him about all these aliens and what their weak points are. This is Batman learning how to hurt. Batman isn't about just hurting the human villain. He wants to learn how to hurt all bad guys, regardless of your species. He wants to know how to take you down and cause you pain. This is a Batman that I love. This is Frank Miller in space, Batman in his early years. This is awesome. And Frank and Doug Mankey, I love his art. I love his art on Justice League Elite, where I fell in love with it when he did that series, Justice League Elite. Doug Mankey's one of my favorite artists. He just has a visceral, dark. The tone of Doug Mankey's art is just perfect for this series. I've already read issue 2. I had to. It gets better. Issue 2 is even better than the first issue. I like you. I highly recommend this series for people to pick this up.
Yeah, it's just a heck of a lot of fun. That's all I can say. So much fun. All right, up next we have Superman number 8 from writer Joshua Williamson, art by Gleb Melnikov and Norm Rotman, David Baldione and Jamal Campbell, colors by Alejandro Sanchez and Campbell, letters by Dave Sharp. Continuing the story of the Chained, we get a little bit more of his origin here. We find out why he has tactile telekinesis. Much like Connor Kent, we find out why it's more powerful. Come to find out that when Cadmus went to basically, create Connor Kent in a lab as a clone of Lex Luthor and Superman, they sort of threw in some of the Chain's DNA as well, and that's why Connor has the tactile telekinesis, although not on the level that that the Chain does, because that. He was given his powers, not at birth, but later by Lex Luthor, and that's why he holds Luthor responsible for sort of being the way that he is, and obviously Luthor was instrumental in giving him powers, but then also in imprisoning him, for years. So he's out for revenge, but not just for the sake of revenge, because we did see at the end of last issue he was approached by Farm and Graft to join up, and he's like, well, why should I join you? He doesn't need their help to get revenge on Luthor. He feels like he can do it himself. But what's interesting when you start talking about the Chained, Sam Stryker, who killed his father, who was the person that built the penitentiary or what have you. But when you start talking about Sammy Stryker, you're talking about somebody that probably had some mental or personality issues already, and then you give him that ability, and that might come from the type of upbringing he had with his father, probably very authoritarian or disciplinarian, and so this ability to lash out and power that maybe was not put in the right hand, so to speak. Again, we're talking about a Luthor sort of at the beginning of his career as well. Maybe didn't make the best choices. Not that he makes the best choices now, being that a lot of times his choices are in his best interest. But I'm sure if Lex had it to do all over again, he's not going to give the Chain the powers that he did. So Superman, once he realizes and gets a little bit of the background of what's going on, he goes to Luthor. Hey, how'd you capture him the first time? It turns out he built in a weakness. Again, Luthor early on, before he was even really aware that Superman existed. Well, there was this rare element back in Smallville when I was a kid that I just, found some of. Turns out it's kryptonite. So what is the Chain's weakness? But the same as Superman's, it's kryptonite. So Superman wears some armor that has kryptonite gauntlets. The armor, protects him, but during the fight with the Chain, the armor is damaged. And so although they are able to recapture the Chain, Superman's infected with kryptonite. And we're told only one thing can save Superman now, super armor. So we'll see how that all plays out. The art's just not quite as clean as it's been throughout the run. There's been a very specific style that Jamal Campbell has, especially when he's coloring his own work. It's got that digital painted feel, and it's very smooth and it flows really, really well. Not to say this art is bad. You can just tell that there's a lot of different people working on it. They do a pretty good job of making it all look consistent for the issue, but it's if you go back and look at previous issues that Campbell did on his own, it's not as it doesn't flow as well. But the storytelling is fantastic. The color work's great, and I'm really enjoying Williamson's take on Superman. It's a it's a faster paced Superman story than we've had for a while. Maybe it couldn't help but be faster. The previous Superman guy was Bendis, right? So it had to be faster than Bendis's decompressed storytelling style. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this. I look forward to seeing more of the Chained. Although he's defeated here, I can't imagine he's going to be left off the playing field for very long. He seems like a good addition to Superman's Rogues Gallery. So we'll see where that goes moving forward. What do you think?
I I still remain intrigued as a compliment to Joshua Williamson. I still remain intrigued at just how he's piqued my interest regarding the early years of Lex Luthor. It really does appear so far that in the early years of Lex Luthor really was a hero, or at least more closer to hero than necessarily anti-hero. Now we got a little bit more information by Lex Luthor himself. He says that the reason why he chained up Sammy Stryker was because it was not because he was dangerous. Well, it was because he killed his father. That Sammy Stryker actually killed his father. His father was the one that actually built Stryker's prison. And so, according to Lex Luthor, Sammy Stryker is in fact perhaps criminally insane, or is in fact a murderer. And Lex Luthor took it upon himself to chain him. And of course, Superman has issues with that, saying, well, why did you do that yourself? Why didn't you give him to authorities? But when you see, as a reader, as we see how powerful the Chained is, part of me is sympathetic to Luthor's position. Luthor probably assumed the responsibility because at some point he probably considered himself, with both a degree of arrogance and narcissism, as being the protector of Metropolis before Superman came along. And so he probably took it. It's perfectly in keeping with Luthor's personality to say, no, I gotta cage this guy. I gotta imprison this guy. I can't trust. No one's as smart as I am. Only I know how to imprison this guy, how to keep keep Metropolis safe. So it fits with Luthor's character. And I like how Williamson has set that up, because I think it works. It possesses a lot of that magic verisimilitude, is that word that I actually pronounced correctly. So I actually like that aspect of it, and I like how the characters are developing. I still love Lena Luthor. I want to know what he's going to do with that. Lex's relationship. Lex, in a rare moment of showing actual caring and emotion and compassion, Lex Luthor showed genuine concern at the potential killing of his daughter Lena when the Chain had her up there. He very much asked her, please. Lex Luthor said to him, let him go, let her go. And I'm not sure. The jury's maybe still out to what extent Sammy Stryker is this diehard murderer. To what extent is he that insane? I'm not sure, but I like the character work that's being done here. That's what really stands out for me. And I agree with you on the art. It's not as good as Jamal Campbell, but it is consistent throughout, and it didn't detract from my enjoyment of the story.
Yeah, Jamal Campbell's in here. He's still credited as the artist. And again, I think they do a good job. I would probably have to go back through because I didn't notice while I was reading it there was any time where I went, wait, Campbell did that page, Ratman this page, whatever. So yeah, the art is, it's consistent. At least you can say that. All right. Up next, we have Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong, issue number 2 from writer Brian Buccellato. Christian Duce is the artist, Luis Guerrero on colors, Richard Starkey and comic crafts, Jimmy Betancourt on letters. Godzilla hits Metropolis. What'd you think?
You know what? I'm actually not. I'm actually. This is not on my pull list, to be honest. Despite all the hype and all the different covers and the radio covers and or whatever the sound covers and all the hype surrounding this. It's actually not on my pull list, although I have a sneaking suspicion my retailer probably has got he'll have as a courtesy probably put some in my pull list because this is something that is there's certainly shelf copies and will be shelf copies on the shelf for probably quite a while because this is sort of a bigger event. But that's not because it's not a great story. I think the covers are kind of cool. In this particular one, there's actually you can combine the Wonder. There's a Batman and Wonder Woman cover that you can combine side by side. It's clearly a cover gimmick, but it is kind of cool. This issue is more just setup, but this is fun. This does feel, dare I say, I know it's cliche to say, we say it from time to time, but damn, when it fits, it fits. This does feel kind of cinematic. And with Godzilla -1, which is coming out, and I just finished watching the second episode of Monarch, the monster. It was streaming on Netflix, I think. So Godzilla and Kong and the monsters stories like this seems to be sort of like the one of the hypes at the moment. I enjoyed this. It's I think that what is it, Busanello? How do I say his name? Oh,
Bucciolato.
Bucciolato. I think he scripted a good story here. He does a good job uh, of showing how the heroes battle these monsters. And I thought it was so cool. Maybe a little bit predictable, but I love how Shazam and Superman fight Godzilla, and how, as a reader, I'm sure I'm not the only one that when Billy Batson appears above Godzilla and he's going to shoot his lightning down on Godzilla, I'm sure I'm not the only one that was thinking, that's a mistake because Godzilla's powered by lightning, you idiot. And even Superman tells him to stop. It was just kind of a fun fanboy moment I had, because I'm not an expert on Godzilla, but if it's one thing I do know is that you're not going to defeat Godzilla by hitting him with lightning. And I thought that was a lot of fun. There was good character work on the Bat family, where Jason Todd, of course, being Jason Todd, doesn't listen to the Bat family, breaks with protocol, tries to shoot and tries to kill one of the monsters that's attacking Metropolis, ends up making the situation worse, pissing off the Bat family. A lot of action. I love the use of Batwoman in here. I thought it was really good. This was really genuine action packed. 33 pages. I mean, comic books are pretty expensive here, but I think that in terms of action, in terms of within its own continuity, I think if you're just looking for a good read and you want to pick up a miniseries that's going to be a lot of fun, I think this is it. This was a lot of action. The first issue was a good setup, and here we're getting right into the action, how these monsters are affecting and attacking all these cities. And this was a lot of fun. And again, why isn't this on my pull list? It probably should be. To be honest with you, I'm inclined to maybe wait for the hardcover because I'm enjoying this enough that if I have this level of enjoyment like I did this issue, and I don't know what this is, 5 or 6 issues long, I can see myself picking up this in hardcover, especially if they come up with some fancy foil and I open up the hardcover and it roars Godzilla to me or something, or King Kong's roar. I can see myself doing that, but this is definitely one that, for whatever reason, I'm probably going to wait for the inevitable hardcover to come out. But I enjoyed the second issue.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. You mentioned the punch. I think it's Batgirl that punches out Jason Todd. I definitely got a Bwahaha One Punch vibe with
Yeah,
Batman punching out Guy Gardner.
yeah,
Brian Bucciolato's about our same age, so I'm sure he read that when he was a kid. He's probably a little bit of an homage to that. So that was a lot of fun. The other thing, and I was kind of surprised you didn't mention it. I thought you were going to go there, but you went to the Billy Batson lightning bolt thing, which I had the same thought. That's not going to go well. But I thought you would mention, or maybe you didn't notice it. But so what I found to be so interesting. So we have Shazam or Captain Marvel and Superman, and they're taking on Godzilla, right? And Godzilla is Godzilla, right? And a lot of people think, oh, Godzilla's a T-Rex. No, Godzilla's not a Tyrannosaurus Rex. He's so much bigger. He's this giant lizard. He's not a Tyrannosaurus Rex. When you look at him, he's Godzilla. Like he's singular. There's nobody quite like him. He's like this cross between, like his tail and the scales on it look more like a Stegosaurus than a Tyrannosaurus, and he's much bigger. He's just Godzilla, and he's just the king of the monsters, and he's amazing. And so it makes sense that you'd have, two of the most powerful heroes in the DC universe taking him on. But you would think they would fare a little better because they really get their butts kicked. Meanwhile, you have Batman and the Bat family over here, and they're taking on this giant. I won't even pretend to try to pronounce it, whatever. But more kind of
I don't know what it is.
South, maybe it's South America or Brazil or something like Mayan or Incan, or some kind of monster from Latin American lore of some sort.
It looks like a giant bat. It looks like a mutant bat.
Yeah, and they mention it, looks very bat-like and whatever, and so it makes sense you have the Bat family take them out. But again, no powers, with the exception of Black Canary, who based on the fact this monster has sonic powers, they figure that out. They figure out the weakness and whatever, and it sort of feels like, despite some property damage in Gotham City, it sort of feels like, it's Batman. He figures it out. They defeat their monster relatively easily, with again using Black Canary, but didn't have to. Buccioletto easily could have had it. They figure out the frequency that the monster's susceptible to, and then they just play it, blast it over the speakers of the Bat plane or whatever, and it takes the monster out. But they used Black Canary, and it made sense, and it was cool, and they're great visuals, whatever. But and it's a great scene. It's a wonderful full page splash from Christian Duce. You could, just see it if they ever turn this into an animated or live action would be amazing. We've seen that scene so many times where the hero's walking forward toward the camera and whatever happens behind them, a big explosion, boom, and the dust kind of, goes past them or whatever. It's like that hero shot. And then, they do that, and it works really, really well. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see it there. Rocky has it. It's just amazing, as Batman said. And so, I got the vibe. I'm like, here's Batman and his Bat family without any superpowers, and they take out this giant flying bat monster in Gotham City, whatever. Meanwhile, you got two of the most powerful heroes in the DC universe trying to take on Godzilla, and they get their butts kicked. So I don't know if it says more about, like, Batman's better than Superman, or more about the fact that Godzilla is just, he's king of the monsters for a reason, whatever. But it stood out to me. I'm like, well, here's Batman taking care of business in relatively short period of time, and then we got Superman over here who can't, maybe he's trying, trying not to hurt the monster or whatever. He's Superman being Superman. He's trying to get the monster away. He's trying to get Godzilla away from Metropolis. He's worried about property damage. He's worried about loss of life. And don't get me wrong, that's what Superman should be. But there was a part of me that kept waiting for, why don't you just like fly way off in the distance, come flying, with as much speed as you can muster, and just lift the thing up and fly it where you need to fly it. Like I kept waiting for him to do something like that. But anyway, it's just something that stood out to me that I wanted to mention. Like, here's Batman taking it out relatively easily, and Superman struggling. So that stood out to me. The other thing was, we got an oversized first issue that was a lot of fun. We got a lot of the Legion of Doom. The Legion of Doom got a fair amount of screen time in the first issue, and I really loved it. They're bickering back and forth and one-liners and talking smack on each other. We didn't really get that in the second issue. More action, which is great, and that interaction and that spotlight on the villains was kind of needed to move the story forward for us to understand why the monsters are here and what have you. But I missed it a little. I missed it. I missed seeing the villains bicker back and forth. I enjoy that. So I hope that there's more of that coming, because we did get a little bit of the villains, but not a whole lot. So again, it makes sense. We got more of the heroes and their interaction in this issue. We mentioned the Bat family, Jason Todd, the Punch Out, what have you. The first issue we didn't get that much of the heroes. We got some Lois and Clark and some kind of setup as far as kind of emotional, interpersonal relationships, but not as much as of the heroes. That was this issue. So, it's fine to kind of balance it out, but I did miss that because I really enjoyed the way Buccioletto scripted the interactions between the villains. So hopefully that's coming.
Yeah, just to quickly add, Black Manta and the Cheetah do discover that it was Toyman playing with that sort of magic red crystal that probably had something to do with the monsters coming to our dimension of Earth. So that's the only thing, like I said, a small bit of information with the Legion of Doom.
That was almost like Buccioletto saying, okay, if you missed the first issue, I'm going to lay it out, because it was clear that that's what was going on. And anybody who, read Night Terrors recently is familiar with the Dream Stone or what have you. It's the same concept here. So the wishing stone, if you will. So yeah, this is a lot of fun. Like you said, I think that we've used that word probably 100 times in reviewing the first two issues of this book. But it is what it is. Like if you have somebody, and this is not a book that's like overly violent. It's very much cartoon violence, that sort of thing. So I say that to say this. Christmas is coming up. If you have a 10 or 12-year-old, especially a boy who's into superheroes, monsters, that sort of thing, and you're looking for some comics to get them for Christmas, getting them the first couple issues of this. Probably the first 3 issues will be out by the time Christmas rolls around. That'd make a great present under the tree or stocking stuffer or what have you. I mean, these are just a heck of a lot of fun. So, all right, let's move on. Up next, we have Teen Titans number 5 from writer Tom Taylor. Nicholas Scott is the artist. Annette Kwok handles the colors. Wes Abbott on letters. Out of the Shadows. This is the finale. It feels weird to say that this is the finale, that this is the end of the first arc, because it really isn't the end of anything other than, I guess it's the end of the sort of subplot of Wally West being killed. We saw 2 issues ago Linda West get infected by the alien, and then Nightwing and Wally West and Linda go to the Titans trophy room, which is actually this structure on Mars, and come to find out Nightwing was one step ahead the whole time. So I really enjoyed that aspect. And basically they get there, Linda tries to cough out the little spore onto Wally. Wally uses super speed, dodges it. Nightwing kills the little spore or whatever. So, supposedly this was how Wally was going to be killed. There's a little bit of exposition from Dick Grayson saying, yeah, well, we knew that, Wally's the fastest guy alive. How could anybody get the drop on him? It had to be somebody that he trusted. It made sense that it was Linda. Linda spent some time alone with Garth, Tempest. So, yeah, it all made sense. I'm glad it didn't get dragged out, but it did feel like if you go back and read that first issue, it makes such a big deal about the fact that Wally West is going to die. And then we really didn't get, although it was mentioned several times, it was never, it never really felt like a threat. We never really felt like Wally was, they gave lip service to it, that they were worried about it, but Wally never really seemed in danger. And then the way that he's saved felt very anticlimactic. So I don't know how well that worked. Clearly the spore is something to do with Starro. At this point, we know that Beast Boy is going to turn into a Starro in the upcoming, Titans Beast World event or what have you. So we know that's coming. We know that now Nightwing and Wally and the rest of the Titans know that Brother Blood isn't in possession of his own self. They know that Garth's being mind controlled as well. Do they know what? Do they know it's Starro? Not yet. But that's basically, even though that's sort of the subplot, that's sort of the main part of the story. The other part of the story that actually takes up more space but feels more minor is we saw last issue that Gar wanted to go back and do something other than just stop the fires in Borneo that were happening. They went and they stopped that natural disaster, but then Gar wanted to do more, right? He felt like, hey, we stopped the natural disaster, but we need to go and help rebuild. It's not enough to stop. They go there. There's some eco-terrorists and what have you, buying up the land and doing unscrupulous things. So they stop all that. But then, okay, what can we do now? So they go and recruit Levi Kamei, the current Swamp Thing. He goes there. They use a variety of their powers because it's not enough just to replant everything. They need water. They need wind. They need sun. And that sort of thing. So they use their various powers to kind of create this situation where they restore a lot of the forest that was burned down. And along the way, they try to recruit Swamp Thing to join, which is interesting because he is a much younger version, and he's a different sort of Swamp Thing than Alec Holland ever was. Levi's much closer in age to the Titans, and he's able to kind of transform back to Swamp Thing, back to Swamp Thing, as opposed to Alec Holland, who was always stuck at Swamp Thing. he's like, well, I have other responsibilities, Avatar of the Green, and what have you. So he kind of agrees to be a reserve member, which I think is interesting. It sort of ties Swamp Thing more to the superhero side of the DCU as opposed to the supernatural side or the quote unquote Vertigo side, if you will. So that's interesting. But like I said, that takes up the majority of the issue. But that feels like a little bit of the subplot. Even when you start talking about the covers, it's marked for death. It's really the thing that's still moving forward is the story of, okay, this says it's the end of the first arc, and it is, but really it's now we're starting to really get momentum into Beast World, into whatever comes next. So, like, would I say, okay, buy the trade, buy volume one of Titans, um, as collected, if you're trade waiting? Well, if you are a big fan of Nicola Scott's art, I mean, that's worth the price of admission right there, because the art's gorgeous and beautiful, as it always is when she does the line work, and Annette Kwok's colors are done very well, also. But this whole first arc just feels like set up for what comes next. So I could see people feeling, I don't want to say cheated, but feeling like it's not necessarily the best value in terms of bang for your buck, um, because everything is setting up what comes next. And in a way, when you think about this issue, it's a sort of a perfect example of the problem I've had with the series so far. Like, I started out defending it as much as I could, because Rocky was the one saying, yeah, it's just not getting anywhere. It's just not getting anywhere. And the last couple issues, I've just come around to that way of thinking. And it's like, this issue encapsulates it perfectly. The majority of the issue is spent on something that doesn't really matter that much going forward. Yes, Swamp Thing is a reserve member of the Titans now, but is that really a thing that you had to devote the majority of the issue to? Um, because really, what we're talking about moving forward is Beast World and what comes next, and that's the, in terms of real estate that's spent on that, in terms of pages, and just attention, it plays second fiddle, but it's the most important part. So I don't know. I'm really struggling with Titans right now. I want to like it more than I do, but it feels backwards. It feels like story wise, structure wise, things just aren't clicking. So I know Tom Taylor's a super talented writer. I'm a fan of his. He's a great guy. I love Nicola. She's a friend as well. But man, it's just not clicking for me. Something's not working. So hopefully, with the second arc, it gets better and it kind of flips around, and it feels like the emphasis is being put in the right place, so to speak. So anyway, what did you think about it?
Well, I mean, I could repeat everything you said, but you said it very well, and I agree with you. I think this is just meh. Is it good? I guess, but it's just kind of meh. Everything wraps up. Dare I say, it just wraps up so conveniently. Everything, all the ducks are in a row. It just seems so convenient. Nothing really seemed, like you said, like, it just felt kind of meh, boring. Dare I say? Now there is an interesting revelation at the end, but who cares about the revelation at the end? Did you know that Wally West died in the first issue? And guess what that turned into be? Kind of the meh again. You know, this is it's missing something. This was missing a hook. This was missing something that really grabbed me, and it hasn't grabbed me yet. Now it looks like Brother Blood is a Tamarian as well, or Tamaranian. And my guess is maybe could that be Ryander, who's Starfire's brother, who's dressed as Brother Blood? I know that Starfire had a brother, but assuming he hasn't been killed off in some other event. But so, uh, so yeah, I'm not going to add to your comments because I think you said I agree with you. I will say this though, that having read the first issue of Beast World, I think that you don't need to read anything to understand it, and I enjoyed it. So I was stunned. I'm stunned to say that I think Beast World first issue of it was actually an interesting setup. You don't need any of this. I didn't need this setup at all. It's not that difficult to concept Beast World. It's beautifully encapsulated in that opening issue and people will know when they get it. I think this setup is so boring that I actually think, God, I hate to say it, but I'm not sure if people are going to be all that excited for Beast World. Beast World is better than this story, which is a kind of a lead into it, would suggest, straight up. And So I was actually pleasantly surprised because I'm not looking forward. I mean, who wants to read an event centered around Beast Boy? I mean, good God, I wanted Beast Boy to die in Dark Crisis. I was disappointed they didn't kill him off. I literally, but now with Beast World, maybe he'll get the credit and the gravitas that maybe DC has been trying desperately for him to get, other than just being the boyfriend of Raven in young adult novels. So all in all,
People love Beast Boy.
I know they do. I know they do. I don't. I'm not one of them, but maybe Beast World will change my mind. Again, I like the first issue, and we'll be reviewing that next week or 2 weeks from now, whatever it is. But yeah, but this was just kind of meh for me. I love Tom Taylor, but this Titans is just not. It's not really firing on all cylinders for me. But maybe Beast World and getting into that things will change. We'll see.
Yeah, Beast Boy. We'll talk a little bit about it later. There's another Titans book to talk about. I'll save my Beast Boy thoughts for that.
Yeah.
All right. Up next, Catwoman, 9 Lives, issue number 59. Tini Howard on story, Stefano Raphael on art, Veronica Gandini on colors, Lucas Gattoni on letters. This is a lot of fun. This is really interesting, playing off of what happened at the end of Gotham War. Apparently, Catwoman literally has 9 lives now. We know that, the meteor crashed and, created a Lazarus pit of sorts underneath Gotham City. And then, you mix in this idea of that meteor being what gave Vandal Savage his immortality. And we know he's tied to Gotham City now. And so Catwoman herself, as sort of a side effect of that, she's not immortal, but she does have 9 lives, and she actually has these 9 scratches on her back. And when we see him for the first time, one of the scratches is sort of black, has this black mark. So, that's the life she's currently on, so to speak. So she decides that she's going to go on these missions that she's sort of had planned out, but they were never worth risking her life for because they're that dangerous. And the first one is to go and take out the woman who previously was in a relationship with Valmont. It's the woman who owned the cat Duchess, and it's this woman who's an assassin, and she doesn't let anyone near her. If they do anything, her servants do anything that she doesn't like, she just kills them. So there's a lot of innocent blood on her hands, despite the fact that she's a contract killer. I think Catwoman's sort of okay with that. Paolo Molina is her name. And again, Catwoman sort of okay with her being a contract killer. It's the killing of innocents that she can't really stand. So, in the process of taking this woman out, Catwoman dies twice. So she's already down. She says, okay, it's worth it to, use up my lives to go, take these people out or steal, whatever particular thing is unstealable or whatever. But I don't think she's, planning on, she said there's like 7 or 8 missions. She's not going to make it if she's losing, 2 lives per mission. But it's really, it's an interesting premise for Tini Howard to really get Catwoman sort of back out on her own, solo, without all the supporting cast and that sort of thing. So I really enjoyed it. I thought it was cool, even in the midst of Catwoman taking this woman out. As I said, she dies twice, but she doesn't even realize. She thinks that she actually made it through without losing any of her lives. And then when she's getting undressed at the end of the day, those marks, as I said, now 3 of them are black. She's like, oh, I guess this particular time when I got stabbed, I actually died. Or this particular time when I got shocked, I actually died. So, I mean, we're not surprised by it, especially because when it happens in the story, we get this little hint in terms of the art. We're seeing this like Egyptian cat idol, apparently when Catwoman loses a life. So very interesting, a lot of fun, and as kind of a throwback to Catwoman being more on her own once again, she's in her old purple costume back from like the Jim Ballant days. It's not my favorite Catwoman costume, I vastly prefer it over the costume that she's been wearing recently, the one that Joelle Jones um, designed. Like, I just, for whatever reason, I never liked that. I never understood why there's cutouts on the armpit. What, does she sweat a lot from her armpit, so she needs it uncovered? I just thought that costume looked terrible. My favorite one is actually the one she wore like back in the mid '80s when she had the skirt, and she always had the whip with the cat o' nine tails. But that, when you think about it, how much sense does it make for a cat burglar to be running around in a long skirt? It makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like, it's not practical at all. I just visually, it's always been my favorite. But yeah, it's fun to see her back in the purple costume. Yeah, I prefer this one over the Darwin Cook one with the giant goggles. I never really like that one either. Or sometimes it's not goggles and it's just the giant eyes on her face. This to me, go with this one or go way back to the skirt one. Those are my favorites. But anyway, I thought it was a lot of fun, very refreshing to get away from all the unnecessary accompaniments and supporting characters or whatever. Catwoman to me is best solo, out on her own, doing what she does. Forget about the relationship with Batman. Forget about her running Alley Town. Just give me Catwoman out there pulling heists, and the fact that she's going to be pulling heists that are as dangerous as anything she's ever done. Yeah, I'm in. I'm really enjoying this. So yeah, maybe my favorite issue of the Tini Howard run so far. I don't know. It's close. It's up there for sure. What do you think?
Well, I actually like the concept. I don't like how we arrived at it, because I really didn't enjoy Gotham more. And I thought there could have been 10,000 different ways that would have been more interesting to arrive at the concept of 9 lives. She could have been, I don't know, she could have been in Egypt and knocked down a cat idol and then got swarmed with some magical something that gave her 9 lives. But you know what? Whatever. I don't care. The idea that, she's using up these 9 lives, it is interesting that she's decided to give herself some almost, it's like, the concept is interesting. It's like Selina giving herself a series of like 6 or 7 Mission Impossibles where she's going to die, but she has to do these things. She's wanted to do these things, but I guess she's too afraid, or she doesn't want to risk her. They're not quite enough that she wants to risk her life for, but if she knows that she's not going to die, well, then she's going to give it a shot. That's kind of interesting. I'm surprised she almost wastes a life on this particular villain, but then I guess that's the point of the story. It's going to be interesting to see. You mentioned the different costumes of Catwoman over the years, and frankly, I love all of them. Who doesn't love Jim Balance purple costume? It's gorgeous. I wonder if Tini Howard, if we're going to get a different version of Catwoman moving forward, because with 3 lives already being used up, and we got like 6 left. This might be a 6-issue arc. Is each issue going to be a life? And is this going to be a 6-issue arc called 9 Lives? And is it? It almost reminds me of like the 12 tasks of Hercules and the 12 things that Superman had to do and for all seasons. And what is this Tini Howard's epic Catwoman story where she's going to knowing she's got 9 lives, she's going to use them all to the best of her ability to right the wrongs that she couldn't do if she was mortal. But now that she's temporarily immortal, she's going to do this. A couple of questions I have, which I don't think Tini Howard is concerning herself with. How on earth did Catwoman actually discover that? I mean, that she must have died once to realize that she's got 9 lives. She woke up, she saw these scars. And then how did she just assume that it meant that she's immortal? I don't know. It was, I guess she just found out. Why? I'm almost curious as to her recklessness. I mean, how many of us would choose that if we know that we had 9 lives, would we put ourselves into harm's way just for shits and giggles to get things done? It shows an interesting side to Selina, and I'm really curious to see where Tini Howard takes this. I hope it's more than just, Mission Impossible for the sake of Mission Impossible. I hope that there's a lot of past Catwoman stories where she's done a lot of questionable things, and rather than Tini Howard telling her new story, her own stories, and making up these villains like she made up this one, I'd like her to delve more into Catwoman's past. because I mean, Catwoman's faced death many times by many villains, and I'm really surprised she would be afraid of dying because of this one woman. I don't quite buy that, but I get it for the sake of story, and I will give Teeny Howard credit that this is an interesting concept. I hope she does something with it, and I hope these individual stories that this quest that Selena's on keep getting more interesting, because it is a cool concept. I hope she nails. I hope the journey is fun and that she nails the landing.
Yeah, I think she will. I mean, I think this was kind of a let's get our feet wet sort of thing. But I mean, this was a fight as opposed to a heist. I'm looking forward to some heists that are going to cause Selena to risk her life. So,
Yeah.
all right. Up next, we have Batman, Superman, World's Finest, number 21 from writer Mark Waid. Dan Mora is the artist. Tamara Bonvillain on colors. Steve Wands on letters. Yeah, it's Superman and Batman. They're on what, Earth 23, the
Yes.
Kingdom Come Earth, and the Kingdom Come Earth is not aware that they are part of a multiverse. So Superman and Batman end up there. They're looking for Thunder Boy. What do they call him? Thunder Man here, I think he's called.
Yeah.
And yeah, things go sideways quickly when the Batman of Earth 23 and the Superman of Earth 23 are taking on their counterparts. This is just a lot of fun. If you've read Kingdom Come and you have that context, you're going to get a little bit more out of the story. But it's not necessary. Like this is basically Mark Waid going back and giving us basically the prehistory of why the world of Kingdom Come was the way that it was. So the question becomes, doesn't this story have to end in such a way that it doesn't change anything? Like the Superman and Batman of Earth Zero or Earth Prime are going to have to leave, and everybody else will have to forget that they were there and forget there's a multiverse, so that things can play out the way that they did in Kingdom Come? Or is it going to be a situation where Batman and Superman of Earth Prime save the day and stop Boy Thunder from becoming Magog, and then the Kingdom Come will have never happened? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it's interesting, but leaving aside that sort of paradoxical thinking, this is just fun. This is just timeless. This is what Waid has been doing with World's Finest all along. And there were hints and rumors of Boy Thunder being Magog in the first place, and that wasn't necessarily laid out when we saw him basically leave the comic. He was only there for a short, like 2-3 issue arc. But I'm glad Wade's come back to it, and I'm glad it's Stan Mora drawing it, because his art's absolutely fantastic, and the characterization of the different versions of Batman and Superman makes sense, which is so interesting to me, that Waid is able to write these characters. He writes them very well, but they're essentially the same characters, right? I mean, they're both Superman, they're both Batman, but he writes them differently enough based on the context of the worlds that they live in, that there are differences, and you can definitely see and get the idea that that the Batman of Earth 23 will come around to be accepting of what Earth Prime, Superman, and Batman are there to do and say and believe, as opposed to the Superman of Earth 23. They're lying. I don't want to buy into it, whatever. Maybe it's just much like the Superman of Earth Prime felt a real connection to Boy Thunder. Maybe it's just the same thing. The Earth 23 Superman just feels such a connection to Thunderman that he's got blinders on, so to speak, to what actually is the truth. So I'm really enjoying this. I know it's sacrilege to say, but to me, Kingdom Come is just okay. I'm not the biggest Alex
Sacrilege.
Ross.
It is.
I know I'm not the biggest Alex Ross guy. I mean, don't get me wrong. For one static image, his art can be very impactful, but his art doesn't really. The transitions from panel to panel just aren't his art's not, it's just not that style. It's not suited to feel real fluid. It's very much suited for like, covers or splash pages or that sort of thing, as opposed to kind of the traditional storytelling where you've got to show action. But anyway, neither here nor there. I'm actually enjoying this and the concepts and the backstory that Wade is creating here in this way more than I enjoyed Kingdom Come back in the day. So anyway, that's my hot take that I'm sure a lot of people are going to disagree with. Oh, Kingdom Come, so good. I sort of feel the same way about the Marvels across the street at Marvel Comics, which was also around that same time, and really put Kurt Busiek and Alex Ross' name on the map. Yeah. I mean, they're beautiful comics with the acetate covers and what have you, but in terms of story, it was interesting, but I never really understood why. Maybe that's just the contrarian in me. When something blows up so big and everybody's like, I love it so much, it's like, let me take that with a grain of salt. But anyway, what did you think of this issue?
Well, first, you can't put down Kingdom Come without me giving a little bit of a rebuttal. I will just say this: I think Kingdom Come is a timeless tale, and it's a tale that it reminds us of the fact that no matter how old we are, like you and I are the same age, we're maybe older school, and we did things a certain way. Well, if we imagine ourselves to be heroes, well, the generation that comes up after us, they tend to think differently. And in Kingdom Come, it's a generation that was it didn't have the guidance of the moral code of Superman because of what happened in the story itself. And I think it's very telling. And I think I think you can draw a lot of analogies to present day in terms of the struggles and the generational struggles that are occurring right now. And it's not just between new heroes, older heroes, and new heroes. And I think that in that respect, that the tale of Kingdom Come is very telling in terms of what happens when a new generation of heroes lose their mentors, lose some guiding principles. And what Mark Waid does well here with this World's Finest story is it's telling us the origins of a younger Earth 23, of events that would ultimately form part and lead to the events of Kingdom Come. And actually, it will work. This is the younger Superman. This is Earth 23 has a Justice Brigade, which shows up at the end of the issue to confront Earth 1, Earth Prime, Superman and Batman, and ultimately they will. And the Justice Brigade, the legacy characters, the generation that follows the Justice Brigade will be the heroes that will ultimately lead to a more unfortunate fate at the end of Kingdom Come. But the origin here of the person of Thunderman, who will become Magog, and the revelation at the end here that all the heroes of Earth 23, not only do they not know about the existence of the multiverse, which is why they're so surprised to see these, what they believe to be probably doppelgangers of Superman and Batman, is that they also discover that you also realize that the Gog, the one that has manipulated Thunderman who will ultimately become Magog, is Gog himself, and that the heroes, the Justice Brigade itself, worships Gog. Now that's huge. That's a huge revelation. And so it makes me speculate with my knowledge of Kingdom Come. What happens? We know that ultimately Gog must be defeated, and then maybe Thunderman might be taken off the playing field, and then at a subsequent date return as Magog to Earth 23 and kill the Joker, setting off the events of Kingdom Come. And in any event, I think this works very well. I love the art by I think it's Dan Moore, I believe, on the art, and Tamara Bonvillain on the colors. I think it works very well. I think story-wise, I think Mark Waid knows these characters, whether it's the Superman, Batman, or Earth Prime, Designate Zero, or Kingdom Come, and I had a lot of fun with this. As somebody who loves Kingdom Come, it's a special place in my heart. Like hundreds of, probably tens of thousands of others, I own the omnibus. So no, I enjoyed it. Once again, I mean, this is also one of the comics that is in competition for my pick of the week, and I still haven't chosen my pick of the week yet, man. But because there's still some good ones to come.
Yeah, I haven't thought about it at all. I mean, don't get me wrong. The fact that it's the absence of Superman, my favorite character that basically leads to the world that is Kingdom Come, consequences, whatever. I appreciate that, but again, I don't know. I feel like it's overhyped a little bit, and
Yeah,
a lot of it has to do with the art. Just the art just doesn't work that well for me. Which again, I know sacrilege, what have you. Anyway, let's move on. I don't have a lot to say about the next one. Hawkgirl number 5, written by Jedza Axelrod, drawn by Amin K. Nahelapan, colors by Adriana Lucas, letters by Hassan Otsman Elhau. I keep going back to the fact that I just don't know um, Kendra that well. I just don't. So when we're exploring her past and traveling through different parts of her past here, dealing with her, her grandfather, dealing with her in college. Um, Again, I have no context. Like I can take it for its face value here, and it works okay. But I end up feeling like, what's the point? Because the other aspect, why this is all happening, is because of this villain Velpicula wanting to utilize uh, Kendra and her nth metal, the fact that she's infused with so much of it to get back to the nth world, and it never works. Like this has been Velpecula's like MO throughout, right? Like she's been gradually trying to use people that have more and more access to nth metal to finally get there. It's like you keep making the same mistake over and over. Even using Kendra doesn't get you there. Like, how big of an idiot are you? Um, and then it's Kendra herself who ends up in nth world, which that's going to go poorly for her as well. So what's the point of this? That's what I'm left feeling. And I've been a fan of Amin K's art in the past, but and even in this series itself, but this one felt rushed. This art felt unfinished. It felt like the backgrounds were very light, a lot of silhouettes at times, which can work. Don't get me wrong, but the art just felt rushed. It just didn't feel um, up to the standard that I expect from this artist. So I started off with high hopes for the series and really trying to keep an open mind, but um, it feels like it's in a little bit of a death spiral. No pun intended, being that this is a Hawkgirl book. Um, so yeah, I wonder how well this is going to be remembered. I have a feeling that um, most people are going to want to forget it, especially longtime Hawkgirl fans, because my understanding, again, I don't have context and I don't have the knowledge because I haven't read a lot of Kendra's, previous stuff, especially her, some of the formative stuff that came in the, I guess a lot of it came in the Justice Society, Jeff Johns run, right? Pre New 52. And I just haven't read that stuff. I just haven't. So I don't have the context. But I can only go by what people that have read it have told me. This is sort of throwing all that out, either outright contradicting it or disrespecting it, or just not making sense with what we've seen with what's been established with Kendra before. And again, that's not the newest thing. Each writer should be able to come in and tell the story that they want to tell. And God knows there's been plenty of soft reboots in the DC universe, but since then to now, whether it and even one hard reboot, right? If you talk about the New 52, um, that could have changed all that with Kendra. Or you could talk about DC Rebirth changing things as well. DCU initiative could have changed some things. So you can make it make sense if you want it to fit your head canon. But if you look back and think about how popular, that's really when Kendra became a popular character, a character that people cared about. And then if you're throwing out things that were established that made that character beloved, I don't know. That's a little bit of a misstep to me. Again, I don't have a dog in that fight because I'm not invested in Kendra that way because I haven't read that stuff. I'm just going by what I am getting from this series, and it's just kind of meh. It's not really working for me. And when people I trust are telling me that it goes one step beyond that, I'm going to tend to believe them. So anyway, what do you think, Rocky?
well, I'm going to uh, there are aspects of this particular issue where I think Jackson Axelrod actually, I thought there were some deeply heartfelt moments here for Kendra, and I don't think. Obviously, it sort of missed you, and you, by the sounds of it, Jace, you're saying that if you knew more about Kendra's past, you'd maybe be able to appreciate the storyline more. Look, I don't remember all the details of Kendra's past either, but I still appreciated this a little more than you do, only because maybe it centers on one scene in particular, and that's the one where I really thought it was effective on some levels. Well, Velpecula is going through is somehow, and this isn't really explained exactly how she's doing it. She's going through different aspects and different moments in Kendra's life to when Kendra at different parts of Kendra's life, starting off when she's small, because she wants to get Kendra at any point in her life to agree to, tell me what your wish is, I'll grant it, and then I'll own you, and then you'll basically, it's almost like sell your soul to the devil, but it's Velpecula, and that way Velpecula will be able somehow by Kendra, making sort of having Velpecula grant her a wish or a desire, that somehow that will get Velpecula access to her past lives, and she's going to utilize Galaxy's powers that she somehow controls and be able to get control of Kendra's lives and somehow utilize in some machine to enter into the nth world. Now, admittedly, none of that is really appropriately explained, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Having said that, perhaps a defense can be made because Axelrod, I mean, the nth metal has been used to justify all kinds of crazy nonsense in the DC universe by more than one writer. Axelrod is in this case is saying, well, nth metal can open you up to the nth world. One scene that I thought, for me, I thought was very poignant was when there was a time where in one of her past lives, Kendra actually did contemplate suicide. This is a very sensitive topic, and I thought it was a very heartfelt page, and it really impacted me as well. I've had suicide in the family, and the words impacted me a little bit. I'm not going to lie. Where Kendra, shows compassion for her past life and says, "Of all my past lives, I cherish you the most," and I thought it was because she has compassion for herself, and I think that's something that I think many people need to have. And I thought Axelrod did a good job of showing that you have to have compassion for yourself, no matter what you're going through in life. And this one iteration of Kendra's past life, basically, was always trying to be somebody she wasn't, and probably as an influx of the other past lives. But uh, I think that there's a statement here about how people feel about themselves and about the integrity of their own lives. And it says something about what people go through who might be contemplating self-harm. And that's what I got out of it. So that scene actually impacted me surprisingly more than I realized, because I've been very hard on this series. I'm not going to lie. That scene actually caught me off guard a little bit. And I didn't mind it for that reason. Having said that, I will freely admit that this series it's kind of all over the place. I think it's lost its narrative. It's not quite effective enough. I think Galaxy is used a little bit too much. I don't think it's quite clear exactly what Velpecula wants. As you said, I don't see what the big deal is. Who cares if you get into the nth world? Who cares if Velpecula gets into the nth world? Why doesn't Kendra just say, "Okay, you want my help? Fine, here, I'll open the door to the nth world. Bye. There you go. Get away from us." Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you want to get rid of a villain and the villain wants to leave, well, open the door for them and let them leave. I mean, so I don't understand how is Velpecula this villain, and what I find very clever, though, another compliment to Axelrod, Velpecula manages to, in a very clever way, get Kendra to actually make a wish. And she gets Kendra so pissed off, Kendra blurts out, "I just want to be part of something bigger than myself." And Velpecula says, done. And so she grants her that wish, and that opens up the doors to the nth world. So, and because the entire issue was Kendra getting more and more frustrated with Velpecula, she's tracing Velpecula through her various portions of her life. She's getting angry and angry at Velpecula until finally she loses her temper and she falls into Velpecula's trap. And I thought that was cleverly done, and I thought it worked. And so I think of all the issues so far, this is the best issue. I'm not saying the series is great, but this is the best issue so far. And I am actually now curious to see where Axelrod is going with it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that the suicide scene was very impactful. I thought that was a bigger thing with Kendra. I thought that was harkening back to something that had been depicted before. But
Yeah.
again, it goes back to it's not. It's not that I don't remember. It's just I don't even
Uh,
know what is being
yeah.
regurgitated and what is new. I mean, Kendra's one of those characters that just she came around at a time in DC when I just wasn't paying that much attention. I gotta be honest, and so it makes it a little bit problematic for me. So anyway, let's move on. Up next, we have Green Lantern War Journal issue number 3. This is from writer Philip Kennedy Johnson. Art is by Montos, colors by Adriano Lucas, letters by Dave Sharp. What'd you think?
Uh, you know, I love the art by Montos. That's the first thing that stands out to me. This feels like a scientific horror movie. What reading this? It's just the art is so fantastic. The Revenant Dead really look. This is like the ultimate Walking Dead in space. It's really cool. I absolutely love the art and the colors here. It's really great. And I mean, we got these Green Lanterns from another universe. They're given the warning by a John Stewart in another universe. Basically, go. You got to find me in another universe. You got to stop the Revenant Dead. And I guess the ultimate question here is the John Stewart of our universe good enough to stand up to the Revenant Dead? At the end of the last issue, he becomes infected with this sort of like what do you call it? The Revenant Queen or the Revenant Dead. He becomes infected by them, and fortunately, he's basically rescued by these Lantern Shepherd and who is this other mysterious Green Lantern voice that ends up being Kyle Rayner from another universe, basically rescuing him and his mother on the train. They were attacked while they were on a train last issue, and with the help of Steel, the John Stewart is recovering, but he still has an infection, some crazy infection on his arm that looks like his arm is becoming a light construct itself. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but John Stewart doesn't even know what that means. But you can imagine the disappointment of Green Lantern Shepherd from another universe. He's expecting, we need to find John Stewart of this universe to help us against the threat of the Revenant Queen, who's more powerful and will ultimately wipe out all the heroes on this planet except John Stewart, only to find out, well, John Stewart he's a little bit underwhelming. He's not quite up to snuff. And John Stewart is going through something. He's going through something with his mother, and he's sort of off the grid. He's quit the Green Lantern Corps. That disturbs Lantern Shepherd and Kyle Rayner, and they're frank with him. They say, "Look, we're not sure that you're good enough for this. You're probably going to die. You're not exactly what we expected. We're probably screwed as it is. We need to stop the Revenant Queen. We're really kind of hoping." They didn't put it this way, but I'm putting words in their mouth. They're saying, "We kind of wish you were a little bit better than you've come across," and that wasn't the case. And so it's done so effectively by writer Philip Kennedy Johnson that it actually makes me. I really enjoyed this issue. Another issue that I just again, it's in my probably my top 3 for pick of the week. I really enjoyed it. It really established what's at stake for John Stewart. And I feel the threat of the Revenant Queen. I feel the threat that she poses, and 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 yet I have a lot of questions. What exactly is the ultimate power? I'd like to see more of what the Revenant Queen can do. I'd like to see her take out the Justice League or incapacitate them. I'd like to see a little bit more of that because we haven't really seen much of that other than hints of what she's did on other worlds and some of the previous issues and backups in other comics over the last 5-6 months. But I, really got PKG has got me curious. I'm how John Stewart's going to deal with his infection. I mean, at one point the infection was even going to spread, but it appears that he can't even touch another lantern because it automatically will spread to infect other lanterns. So he's got to watch what he does in the distance. He's got to maintain a certain distance from Lantern Shepherd and Kyle Rayner. And I really like it. And in particular, I really love this Lantern Shepherd. He's a new character. And I love seeing Kyle Rayner. I know this is a Kyle Rayner from a different universe, but Kyle Rayner, I always had a place in my heart for Kyle Rayner because I was never a big fan of Hal Jordan. I frankly never cared that he became Parallax. I never frankly cared that he was when he was taken off the playing field.
Sacrilege.
Yeah, I know, but I love Kyle Rayner. I really got into Green Lantern because of Kyle Rayner when and he became the torchbearer, so to speak. And so it's really nice to see even an alternate universe Kyle Rayner step up to the plate here and become part of the show. And I really like what PKJ is doing here. I'll be honest, I really don't know where this is going, and I like that. I enjoy being genuinely not entirely sure where it's going, but knowing I have enough faith in the writer that I'm along for the ride. What do you think?
Yeah, let me ask you this: did you get the impression that, sort of in a backhanded way, this story that PKJ is telling insinuates that the John Stewart that's being referenced by Lantern Shepherd is that all powerful John Stewart that we got in the Jeffrey Thorne series?
Huh. I never I never got that impression, and that never occurred to me. But it's occurring to me now that you mention it. Is it?
Yeah,
But is
yeah.
it
And again, like,
because there was two, right? Wasn't there two? There was actually two John Stewarts. There was one that was left in the dark sector and one that came back, wasn't
right.
there?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. At the end of that story, which
Yeah.
didn't make
Didn't make
complete
a lot
sense.
of sense, really. But
Yeah,
I
but
don't
it's
know.
like, oh, we want that story to count, but it doesn't really make sense because a John Stewart that powerful could just fix everything in the universe of this godlike omniscient powers that Jeffrey Thorne gave him. I mean, it just
Yeah.
was. You want to talk about power creep? Um, and this John Stewart, you mentioned him having left the Corps, wanting to spend time with his mother as she's dealing with dementia and kind of end of life sort of stuff. And, he promised her, and now he's got to actually, in order to keep that promise, he actually has to leave, which, has to just be tearing him up inside. I mean, this is a John Stewart that is anything but omniscient, right?
Yeah.
Especially when he's infected. So yeah, so interesting that it's sort of that juxtaposition between the two different stories. But I agree with you. It's great world building. We know PKJ is really good at that. Um, I like Lantern Shepherd. I like seeing Kyle Rayner show up. I mean, Hal Jordan will always be my Green Lantern. I know plenty of people though that for them Kyle Rayner is the Green Lantern. I mean, the Green Lantern book had really stagnated when they made that change with Ron Mars, Daryl Banks, Hal Jordan losing it with Coast City being destroyed and going and taking all the rings. That was just a fantastic story back in the day, and a great change up to the character and the whole status quo. That's what people forget. Like when it wasn't that Kyle Rayner was a lot of people's Green Lantern. At that time, he was the only Green Lantern. Like Hal Jordan had destroyed
Yeah.
the Green Lantern Corps. Like he
Well,
had
he was
gone.
the torchbearer. That's why they call him the
Yeah,
torchbearer. He kept the torch bright, burning.
yeah. I mean, Hal Jordan killed Kilowog. Supposedly, he took all the rings. He took all the energy from the battery. There was one ring. There was only one ring left, and Kyle Rayner got it. And it wasn't a situation where, okay, let's search for the person who's most deserving without fear, blah, blah, blah. No, it was Ganthet, fleeing from Oa and Hal Jordan having destroyed the battery and killed all the Guardians of the Universe. And it was Ganthet just fleeing to Earth and crash landing in an alley. And here's Kyle Rayner coming out of this bar. I think it was, if I remember,
Yeah.
he like walked out to the alley to like throw up or something because
Yeah.
he'd had
That's
too much
right.
to drink, and he got the ring. So
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah. Anyway, to get back to the War Journal, this is uncharted territory. Part of the reason that Kyle Rayner and that worked back in the day is because it was a whole new world. Didn't know what to expect. We're entering similar territory here with what PKJ is doing, although maybe not quite as original because there is a little bit that's reminding me of. Oh my god, I'm drawing a blank. The Jeff Johns story.
Blackest
We
night.
talk about
Blackest night.
Blackest Night. Yeah, Blackest Night. Yeah. When you start talking about the Revenant Queen and her infecting people, whatever, it reminds me a little bit of
Yeah.
what was done in Blackest Night with Necron and, bringing Black Lantern, bringing dead heroes and villains back to life or what have you. But just in terms of people not basically being in control of themselves, being infected and John Stewart's going to have to figure out a way to fight an army when he himself is infected with the same thing. Curious to see what that's going to be like. So great art, great pacing, great story. But again, you come to expect that from Philip. All right, up next we have Nightwing number 108. This is from writer Tom Taylor. Stephen Byrne is the artist. Adriana Lucas on colors. Wes Abbott on letters. Continuing this idea of B as the pirate queen. I love the interactions between Dick Grayson and B. I love that they reference back to their relationship when when Dick Grayson was Rick Grayson. There's a great scene, with B saying, "Yeah, you tell yourself you left me because you were trying to protect me, and that's just an excuse. Or I'm a pirate queen. I can protect myself." And Dick's like, "But I didn't know that." And you could kind of see that kind of dawn on her and realize. So that was a great interaction. And again, we're building on this idea of the hold and this kind of secret society of pirates and what have you. Her stepbrother or adopted brother, whatever, what have you, taking her out, and it's unclear whether B is going to survive this. But it's all to be concluded next issue. So we'll see how that all plays out. It does feel a little bit like an interlude. It does feel, and I said this when we talked about the first issue, like this story was an excuse to put Dick Grayson in pirate garb. It does really feel like that. Because the one thing about this series that I've said throughout is that it feels like it starts plot threads and they just get forgotten about. Like we still haven't gotten a really good story that really has focused on Heartless. We still have the whole idea of is Melinda Zuko, is she really Dick Grayson's half sister or not? That hasn't been explored. What about all the infrastructure and community center and everything that Dick has built that Blockbuster is trying to tear down? Blockbuster's out of the picture now, but what about the rest of his organization? So yeah, I don't know. It feels like this whole series has been meandering a little bit, and if anything, this story where we're taking Nightwing out of Bloodhaven completely just makes it feel more so like that. So it's still a very good series. Stephen Byrne, his art style is different from Bruno Redondo. But if you are going to have a series like that does feel a little bit like an interlude, it does make sense. Like, hey, let's put Stephen Byrne on this. He can focus on this while Bruno's working on the next arc that is actually set back in Bloodhaven. And maybe that's just part of the reason why it's felt like it's meandered a little bit, because they want to give Bruno a chance to do his best work. So I don't know. I'm still enjoying it, but it's not the must read that it was. It doesn't have like the impact on me that it did when it first started. Like I had tears in my eyes when I read that first issue. So impactful, the letter from Alfred and what have you. But it's almost like that first issue was the high point of the series. Yeah. We got some great moments in those first early arcs. The revelation that he could have a half sister, and that issue that's one long panel. I mean, those are really awesome things. But it feels like it's been a while since we've had like something really impactful. You could look at the relationship between Dick and Barbara as kind of the same thing, right? It's just sort of taken for granted that they're together now, but it doesn't really feel like the relationship's progressing. It's just kind of everything's status quo, and maybe that's what DC wants, right? Because it's selling well. Let's just kind of keep it going for as long as we can, ride the gravy train. But that's not the way to get the best work, if you're just trying to play it safe. And it feels a little bit like that's what this series is doing, is playing it safe. Or at times pandering, like I said, which is even worse. The idea that, hey, we're going to tell a pirate story because we want to put Dick Grayson in pirate garb on the cover because we know that'll sell comics. That's just the wrong way to go. Yeah, that's a great business decision, but creatively, that's not how you get the best work out of people. It's just not. But I've said all along that when you talk about creativity and creative endeavors and what is best for that, it's completely antithetical to what's best for business. I've always believed that. I've always believed that. You make whatever decision is best from a creative standpoint, and sometimes it'll be absolutely fantastic and it'll turn out to be a great business decision because it'll make a bunch of money. But that is very much in the minority. Most of the time, your best creative decision ends up costing more money, and it won't be appreciated until much, much later. I mean, you can even look at like the easiest example I can give to that is movies, right? There's so many movies that come out and they're a flop at the box office or whatever, and then later on, home video or shown on TV or whatever, they become monster hits with these huge followings and fans and what have you. That's just the reality of the world that we live in. So, anyway, what do you think of this issue?
Well, I think I like the fact that I think it's kind of interesting. Tom Taylor appears to be setting up. There's a hidden pirate island in the DC universe that we never know existed, and Captain B. Blood, who is the stepdaughter of the original pirate captain, is sort of like the captain of this pirate ship, and it's also revealed here, very interestingly enough, that B tells Nightwing, she says, "How do you think you were so successful in Bloodhaven, being so successful politically? Being successful in how in the building of the prison and in all the things, all the changes that you made in Bloodhaven. Bloodhaven has gone from being worse than Gotham to being a little bit better than Gotham, and all of Dick Grayson's philanthropy, all his philanthropic efforts would not have been as successful as they were, but for some of apparently the hidden things and the hidden machinations that B has done as her power as Captain Blood, working behind the scenes. That's what she reveals here, and I find that interesting. And also, I wonder if it's Tom Taylor addressing some of the criticisms of the earlier storylines, because his plot lines do have tended to wrap up rather conveniently. We're seeing it in Titans, and a lot of the Nightwing wrap ups here. With you could argue that there's been some convenient wrap ups with some of the more sophisticated plot, what we thought were more complex storylines, and Nightwing ended up being not so complex after all. We still haven't got a resolution of the Heartless storyline, but in any event, it's clear that more seeds are being planted here. That perhaps more is going on in Bloodhaven behind the scenes than we've been led to believe, and in particular with the actions of B herself. And I like the fact we said it last issue, the fact that the adventures, a love interest of Rick Grayson has come forward, and she's got more agency now as B. She's more interesting as a pirate. And you mentioned that fantastic bit of dialogue between Dick Grayson and B, where basically they're yelling at each other, and she's saying she doesn't need protection, and it feels like a natural conversation. And I didn't know you were a pirate, and you could tell there's some hidden jealousy there. So he's playing the jealousy of B, because Nightwing's now with, of course, Barbara Gordon, and all the different emotions that really come to the surface here. It works well. And even when they finally get to this island, remember that there's still information in the keep or in the hold that Dick Grayson is wondering, Nightwing's wondering what's in there and what was taken. It looks like B's been betrayed, and another one of her pirates, I guess it's a mutiny, has taken what was in the hold. And so whatever that gift was that was for Nightwing, we still don't know what it is yet, but the mystery's building. And I like the art. Stephen Byrne's art is good. Dare I say, I hope that we get more of a payoff here than in the end on this storyline than we've been getting in Titans. But I am interested. This was an interesting issue. I don't think B is actually dead. I think Nightwing will probably rescue her or what have you. But it ends on a hell of a cliffhanger. I will say that. And this was Tom Taylor has been hit and miss lately. This is more of the hit for me. I enjoyed this issue. I just hope that we have kind of a payoff, because I feel like Tom Taylor, we haven't been getting enough payoff with his stories. lately, but we shall see.
Yeah, as far as the backup goes, let me give the credits for the backup. It's written by Michael W. Conrad. The art is by Serge Acuna. Adriana Lucas handles the colors. Wes Abbott on letters. Love the art. Love the colors. The story. So this ties into a story that was told all the way back in Batman 149 from 1949, December, or Batman 154, sorry, from December 1949. I don't know how smart that is, tying back into something that's that old. And then there's one part in the story where Dick's about to explain it to Barbara, and then a police car pulls up and they're interrupted, and it's never really explained. Um, I, I don't know. It seems like a kind of a running theme with some of these books. But what was the point of this story? It was fun. The art was great, but the payoff was non-existent. This was not an ending in any way, shape, or form. We don't even get to see Dick like knock the guy out or tie him up or anything. It's just we go from him confronting Dick on one page to him being tied up and hanging from a fire escape in the next on the next page. So I don't know. I didn't see the point of the story. I really didn't. I enjoyed it for the art, but it didn't make a lot of sense to me. Um, I don't know what else to say. Like it missed the mark for me.
I agree with you. I didn't see the point of this story. If you're going to reference a story from 1949, I mean, on the surface, that sounds cool, but good Lord, if you're going to do that, I would hope that if you're going to go that deep into the weeds back to 1949, you know, I would, my expectations actually are going to be a little bit higher. Well, that's pretty cool. That must be a pretty cool concept or a cool villain. But no, it's not cool at all. It's boring as hell. It's a villain that confronts Dick Grayson and he laughs at him. He's a joke. He doesn't even need to be Nightwing to take him out. It's like what's the purpose of this? What's the point? I didn't quite see the I didn't get it either. Serge Acuna's art is really good. I love the art, and I just wish it was in service of a more interesting story. It wasn't an interesting villain either. I mean, just doing a story just for a passing reference to a villain that none of us is anybody. I guess there are some people who've read this that might have been alive in 1949. But I mean, if you're going to reference something like that, I mean, an editor's note. An editor's note to a previous issue is supposed to be an Easter egg, and that previous issue should be something that's going to be, oh, cool, like what is that? Or it's you got to have, you know, to me there are certain unwritten rules about a reference to a past issue. Number one, the reader has to have some willingness to want to go back and see it. Number one, it should be number two, it's got to be a reference to a character that's actually interesting to inspire us to want to go back. I mean, having read this, I've got zero interest to go back and go in a DC universe or DC app and Google Batman 1949. Like that's not going to happen. It's just whatever. It was a miss for me too.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to go pick up the back issue to read it, it's $45. I mean, it's from 1949. This is not cheap. This is not cheap. Yeah, you could probably find it digitally for a lot, less than that or whatever. But yeah. It's you mentioned the villain not being that interesting. Well, yeah, it's the golden age. Villains weren't interesting back then. They were two-dimensional. So I don't know. The art was fantastic. I'll just keep coming back to Serge Acuna's art. Just gorgeous. So
yeah.
Anyway, up next we have Titan Beast World Evolution. So this reprints a bunch of Beast Boy appearances. Teen Titans #6 from back in the 60s, like the first volume of Teen Titans, written by Bob Haney, pencils by Bill Molno, inks by George Russos, letters by Stan Starkman. And then Tales of the Teen Titans #3, that's the limited series from back in the early 80s, written by Marv Wolfman, pencils by George Perez, inks by Gene Day, colors by Adrian Roy, and letters by John Costanza. And then the backup story from Action Comics #1051 that just came out recently, written by Leah Williams, art by Marguerite Sauvage, letters by Becca Carey. And then we also have from the original Who's Who, the definitive directory of the DC Universe, issue #4, when Beast Boy went by Changeling. It has his Who's Who profile written by Wolfman, pencils by Perez, and inks by Romeo Tangal. I'm not going to go through any of this stuff. If you're a big Beast Boy fan, this might be worth it to you to pick up. What I will say is I'll take this opportunity to talk about Beast Boy as a character. I mentioned before how beloved he is. But what's interesting is for as long as he's been around, uh, there is a lack of consistency with the character, both in terms of his characterization, I mean, just the fact that he was Beast Boy when he first showed up and he was a member of the Doom Patrol. Oh, maybe he's wasted in the pages of Doom Patrol. I don't know that I've ever read or seen a reason. If I did, I don't recall why Marv Wolfman and George Perez decided to sort of resurrect him and have him show up in the pages of the new Teen Titans when they launched it, which was, a wildly successful series in the early 80s, DC's #1 selling series, in fact. And it did things that were different than had ever been done in comics before in terms of interpersonal relationships. I mean, really what they did was they turned a superhero team book from being, the typical, let's just focus on the supervillains and the battles and what have you, and traditional superhero comic into a soap opera. That's what it was. They made it a soap opera. They sort of took a page out of the Marvel handbook in the '60s with what Stan and Jack and Steve Ditko did, and creating characters like the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man and Hulk, and that had issues. They had foibles. That's really what Wolfman and Perez did, and it was wildly successful. And why did they bring Beast Boy in? I don't know. And they changed his name to Changeling, and he had a little bit of a different personality than he had in the Doom Patrol. A little bit more fun-loving, but still had some tragedy in his past and what have you. And it was that status quo for the longest time, and they had an in-story reason for him changing his name from Beast Boy to Changeling. That was when I first discovered him. He was Changeling, but then he eventually went back to Beast Boy. But even look at the Titans and how they are problematic. We've talked about this with some of the '90s teen characters, how they're sort of in this limbo because now they've created another generation of young heroes. It's sort of the same thing. Like they were called the new Teen Titans, but how long can you have them around and have them be teens without evolving the characters? And again, when it comes to Beast Boy, maybe it makes a little more sense because he can alter his appearance. He can change shape, what have you. But when you talk about consistency of character and personality, at times he's been a little more morose. At times he's been a little more fun-loving. But even look, from his name to his look, I mean, there are. If you look at the way he was drawn by Perez, like on the screen right now, and then compare that to the way he was drawn by Brett Booth in the New 52 Teen Titans, and then look at how Kenneth Rocafort drew him when he did the book, it's like he looks other than having green skin, he looks completely different. Sometimes he looks more human with like regular ears, and other times he's got like the big pointy like Spock ears. Like he's just been handled so inconsistently. And I don't know that anybody's ever said, okay, this is the definitive run. This is if you want to understand who Beast Boy is, go read this. Even though they've tried to do it at various times, it hasn't been really successful. And I do find it sort of telling that the Tales of the Teen Titans one-shots that we've got that have focused on characters, the least successful of those was the Beast Boy one. And it didn't really go back and explore his past in a way that really made sense or establish who he is now outside of, and you mentioned it earlier, Rocky, outside of, who was the stabilizing force, who was like the stabilizing influence in that book for him? Well, it was Raven. It was his relationship with Raven. So what's the most defining, stable characteristic of Beast Boy that you can count on right now? That he's Raven's boyfriend? Like, how lame is that for a character that's been around as long as Beast Boy's been around? So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. I just feel like he's been done dirty, and maybe this Beast World story will help establish him with a little more consistency that people can have going forward. But I mean, look at things like the way he was treated in the Future State Titans Academy stories, or Future State Teen Titan story, and then the way he was in Titans Academy, and then he's merged with Cyborg, and then he's not, and he loses his eye. Like, people complain about Wally West getting the shaft. Beast Boy's like, Wally West, hold my beer.
Yeah.
So anyway, like I said, I'll get off my soapbox. Give
Well,
you any a chance to give us any thoughts on
well,
this.
I'll temporarily get on my soapbox. I mean, a Deathstroke shoots him in the head, and of course that was in Dark Crisis, and somehow Deathstroke, who rarely misses, somehow just shot him in the eye. No, I'm pretty sure he had his brains blown out. Uh, it wasn't just shot in the eye. He was dead as far as I was concerned. But he didn't stay dead, of course, because it's Beast Boy. You know, he's in love with Raven, and they have an audience, and I get it. But you know, you talk about inconsistency. This one shot itself is a prime example of that inconsistency. You couldn't get a more eclectic array of Beast Boy stories than his first appearance. I'm assuming that is in Teen Titans issue number 6, and then with the Changeling one shot back in the day during George the Wolfman Perez era, and then nonsensically adding in Action Comics 1051, which is the first parter, which involves Power Girl and Omen working on his mind after post Deathstroke. Uh, isn't this just going to confuse readers? I have to tell you, like I might you might disagree with me on this. I might stand to be corrected, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and tell people you don't need to pick this up to enjoy Beast World. You can pick up. I've already read it. Okay, you trust me on this. You can pick up Beast World, the Beast World event number 1, and you don't need to read anything leading up to it. You really don't. It's not rocket science. It's not a complicated storyline. All you got to know is that Beast Boy's got beast powers and he can change into any animal. That's all you really need to know. You don't really need to know much else. And this is just, to me, is a desperate money grab that I actually think is going to muddy the waters and just confuse people. It's completely unnecessary. And you know, look, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Okay,
enough said. Yeah.
enough said. Yeah.
All right. Next up, we have Harley Quinn, Black, White, and Redder. There's 3 stories here. The first is The Harley Spirit, story by Mateus Lopez and Bilquis Evely. Letters by Simon Boland. Then the second story, let me scroll through real quickly. I don't know why they don't have a consolidated letters page. Second story is Flight, written by Justin Halpern. Art is by Kath Lobo. Letters by Wes Abbott. And then the last story, let me scroll a little bit faster here. The last story is called Double Trouble. Story and art by Spearmint. Letters by Josh Reed. Again, I'm kind of tired of these limited color palette stories. The first one by Lopez and Evely felt very incomplete. It's a medieval story. Harley getting backhanded by the Joker. I felt like it should come with a trigger warning for, you know, violence against women. It was really quite shocking. And then some witch recruits Harley. They go out to the woods. They have a ceremony and say, we'll be their champion of vengeance. And then she goes and beats the crap out of the Joker. And then it's over. But it doesn't feel over. It feels like the start of something rather than. But it's a chance to showcase Bilquis Evely's art, which again, it's great. You know, as much as I say I'm tired of the limited color palette, at least it gives us a chance to see her rendering, which is gorgeous. The second story is pretty fun. Actually, it's almost like a take on Harley Quinn and Con Air. She's on this airplane prison transport, and all hell breaks loose. That one's actually pretty funny. Probably the one that I enjoyed the most. And then the last one is Harley Quinn and Ivy dealing with a person on social media that's impersonating her, basically. That one was just kind of eh. So these aren't for me. I'm not a Harley fan. And again, I'm over these limited color palette type stories, but I don't know. You have anything to add?
I do, and I generally agree with you. I will say though, every now and then, and Bill Chris Everly's contribution here to the story, the Harley Spirit, the story by Matias Lopez and Bill Chris Everly. She did the story, but Bill Chris Everly's art. This is absolutely gorgeous. Every now and then I read something like this. I would love this to be Black Label. I would love a Black Label Harley story. I would love to have. I feel that this was an incomplete story. It's the Harley Spirit. It's set in the almost like the Middle Ages. It's this is one of the most beautiful uses of just like pencils and the use of the red and the Harley spirits in red. And it, for the first 3 pages, it's outlined in this elaborate medieval like symbols and red. And then just after the Joker character hits the Harley character in this medieval story, the red and the in uh, ornate framing of the panels disappears at just when she the Joker shatters her nose, and sort of it's symbolizing almost like a loss of innocence, that it's no longer funny, that it's that there's something more. I really like the art itself conveyed a story. You almost didn't need. It's so funny because when I looked at it, I pretend I ignored the dialogue. You can get the gist of the story just by looking at the pictures with Bill Chris Everly's art. It's really good. I think it's really good. And at the end, they call upon this dark Harley spirit, this almost like evil looking Harley spirit that becomes a champion of vengeance, which is really kind of odd because you don't associate Harley that way. But it's a very, very different take on Harley, which is what you expect in these anthologies, quite frankly. And then it's just sort of like there's this darker version of the Harley in her classic red and black and white suit, and that it's sort of like it just again the ornate framing of the panels comes back in a with like red in blood red colors, and there's a blood moon on the final page suggesting that this champion of vengeance, which looks a lot like Harley Quinn, will forever be with us, and that's how the story ends. And I feel like it ended abruptly, and I really really liked it. The other 2 stories I thought were again just that they were all right. The one with writer Justin Halpern, I thought it was okay enough. Artist Kath Lobo does not a bad job with Harley Quinn on a flight. I thought it was it was sort of like what would happen if you put the Suicide Squad on a domestic flight? I mean, that's what you're gonna get. You're gonna get chaos. That's exactly what happened. Surprise, surprise. I can't believe Amanda Waller would allow that to happen. And then, of course, the final one, Double Trouble with Spearmint, letters by Josh Reed. I do like the idea of Harley Quinn, somebody impersonating Harley Quinn on social media, and people mistake the fake Harley for the real Harley, and the frustrations Harley has trying to get to the truth. I thought it was kind of funny too. And but so the best part is the Bill Everly art. I just wish I didn't have to buy. I actually between the Bill Everly art and every single one of the alternate covers, all the covers here look amazing. I've got 2 of the covers showed up on the screen here behind both Jason and I, if you're watching it on YouTube. If not, there is a beautiful Jenny Frison cover, and there is, I'm not even sure if that is what cover is, if that's Derek Chu on the cover, but there's some really gorgeous covers here. David Nakamura, Warren Lau, and Sana Takita have really some absolutely gorgeous covers. And again, if you're going to do a cover by this Harley Black, White, and Redder series, is probably a series to check out.
Yeah, I think that Jenny Frison cover is actually for the next issue. But you're right, the Warren Lau cover, fantastic. David Nakayama cover is a lot of fun as well, and even the main cover, which I don't remember who did the main cover, but yeah, the main cover is fantastic as well.
It's a Sana Takita.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Santa Takita. Monstrous. I think that's what she draws, what most people will know her from. So, anyway, last book we're going to talk about in detail. It's Justice Society number 7, written by Jeff Johns. Marco Santucci is the artist. Yvonne Placencia's on colors. Rob Lee on letters. Bit of a transitional issue. Get a little bit of the Harlequin. We get a lot of Solomon Grundy. A lot of Salem the Witch Girl, and how she doesn't get along, how she with the current Dr. Fate. A little bit of the Huntress trying to recruit, basically she's trying to, now that she's stuck in this timeline, she's trying to get to the point where she was in her own timeline. Batman's there to remind her, hey, this isn't the timeline you were in previously. You may not be able to get there. So it's hard to say where this series is going, partly because it takes so long to come out. I mean, it's been out coming out over a year now. We're only on issue 7 with
Yeah.
constant delays. It's been robbed of all its momentum. It's still enjoyable when it does come out, but uh, these aren't the most packed issues in terms of the amount of story we get. There's plenty of room for the art to breathe, which is fine because the art by Marco Santucci is gorgeous. Although I do miss seeing the Ordway art and the Mikkel Yanit art that we've had in the past. But regardless, whether it's Santucci or Ordway or Mikkel Yanit, all those artists, I love seeing their art. No exception here with the Santucci art, which is fantastic. But again, just it comes out too sporadically to really maintain any momentum or to really get me invested in the story. So I don't know if that's going to change anytime soon. I kind of doubt it. So it's just unfortunate. I love if this would come out on a bi-weekly basis. That's how engaged I am, or how great the story is. But it's hard to stay engaged when it comes out once every 3 months. So yeah, it just is what it is. What were your thoughts?
I thought it was funny. This is kind of a recruitment issue because Huntress last issue was talking about Huntress wants to recruit new members to the Justice Society because in her timeline, which is now erased, because remember that this Huntress, i.e., daughter of Batman, in another timeline that doesn't exist, 20 years from now, recruited a bunch of villains to join the Justice Society. And so, in all her infinite wisdom, she figures that, well, let's recruit these villains now. Well, I'm a little surprised that there wasn't somebody who was maybe sober in the room that said, "Are you insane?" I mean, timing is important when you recruit people. I mean, you don't. I mean, there are things that you know. I was an angrier person with a little bit more flaws than I have now 25 years ago. I'm ashamed to admit. There are certain things you wouldn't want to have approached me with back in the day. And, I'm a little bit calmer now that I'm older and dare I say wiser. The fact that Huntress thinks, and Batman, her, I guess, father is, he's along for the ride and Salem goes along and yeah, no problem. We're going to recruit Solomon Grundy to join the Justice Society. I mean, we've seen it maybe before. Solomon Grundy is kind of an anti-hero. He's kind of a mindless monster, but he has his more gentler moments. I get it. But, one of the best lines I thought in the series is Salem said, Salem has this plan to incapacitate and capture Solomon Grundy that fails. He ends up getting burned because of one of her spells gone awry. And she goes, well, what did you expect? It's Saturday, as a reference to the Solomon Grundy poem. Solomon Grundy died on a Saturday. Most people just think that he was born on a Monday. Well, he also died on one of the days of the week, too. Unfortunately, it appears to have been Saturday. But in any event, this recruitment issue I thought was kind of meh. I don't know how I feel about it. Clearly, this is moving toward a new Justice Society to rock the boat a little bit. But as you said, the you know uh, I'm long past having patience for Jeff Johns. I'm absolutely loving what he's doing over with Image, with his own universe there. I'm all for it. The Geiger and all that jazz. I love the world he's building. But I mean, let's face it. I mean, we should make a prediction right now. Next year at this time, next November 2024, what issue of Justice Society will we be on? Will it be on? We should be on issue 19 by then, but I bet you we'll be on issue 11. Like, I mean, every 2 or 3 months we get an issue of Justice Society. This is not a story make. And Jeff Johns, I love you, but Johns, if you can't commit to a regular schedule, we're kind of wasting our time here. And it's too bad because Jean Loring is back here. Dr. Midnight talks to Jean Loring, and the last time I saw Jean Loring, she was in prison following Identity Crisis. Where she made Elongated Man. What she did to Elongated Man's wife, and that Identity Crisis series. My God, Jean Loring shows up, and talk of Eclipso, and this is kind of cool stuff. And Jeff Johns, damn him. He's such a, he knows he's so intimately knowledgeable of DC characters and lore. He knows how to capture my interest. But damn it, Johns, I need you to be more committed to DC if you're gonna plant all these fantastic ideas, but only give us a comic book every 3 months. Dare I say, I'm frustrated. I enjoyed this issue, but knowing that we're probably not going to get one for another 3 months just makes me kind of shake my head. But it is what it is.
Yeah, issue 11. So yeah, that would be basically one every 3 months.
3 months, yeah.
Uh, yeah,
That's me.
I mean,
I'm being
yeah,
cynical.
yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, I mean, part of me thinks they'll just cancel it, but before it gets to that point. Uh,
Oh, maybe.
so yeah, I mean, issue one came out. Issue one ccame out last November, so we're it took a year for 7 issues.
Jesus.
Um, so I
Unreal.
mean, based on that schedule, we'd be on issue 14, a little better than 11, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean that's the thing. We got number one came out in November, and then number two came out in January, and then we skipped February, then we had March, and we skipped April, and we had May, and then we skipped June and July, and we had August, and then we had September, and then we skipped October, and we had November, and we're supposed
Wow.
to have issue 8 in December, and we're supposed to have issue 9 in February, and number 10 is yet to be determined. So
Yeah, there you go.
yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see. Anyway, that does it for the issues we're going to talk about in detail. There are some collections: Poison Ivy Volume 2, which collects the G. Willow Wilson series, specifically issues 7 through 12. That's out. We also have, speaking of Green Lantern, Kyle Rayner. We've got a compendium, basically with his early adventures. It collects Green Lantern 0 and 48 through 65, 48 being basically his first appearance. So 48 through 65. Rebels 94, number 1, New Teen Titans 116 and 117, 124, 125, Guy Gardner Warrior 27 through 28, Dark Stars 34, and Damage number 16. So the reason it has so many of those other random series is because he was a new character. What do you do with a new character? You guest star him in a bunch of other books so you can get people interested in going and picking up the Kyle Rayner Green Lantern book. We've also have Trial of the Amazons trade paperback. It collects a bunch of the Trial of Amazon tie-ins and one-shots. Neither Rocky nor I would recommend you pick that up. It's a tough read, but if you're so
Yeah.
inclined, check it out. And then the last thing that I want to mention, not for the faint of heart, with a $500 gift tag, but there is a Sandman Morpheus Helm Masterpiece Edition hardcover. So this collects the entire Sandman saga, 1 through 75, as well as Sandman the Dream Hunter, Sandman Endless Nights, Sandman Overture, and they fit together on this book stand, which is a detailed bone snout and helmet of Sandman. Just go check it out for yourself. Like if you're a Sandman fan, you're going to be interested in seeing this, and maybe you'll be tempted. Get yourself an early Christmas present. But yeah, $500,
Wow.
not cheap. So those are the collected editions that are out this week. So moment of truth, Rocky. What do you have for
Uh,
your book of
yeah,
the week?
I've been as you've been talking there, I've got to I've got to go with I have to go with Batman Off-World. Uh, it's just because it felt like a breath of fresh air to me. It was a lot of fun, and it's the one thing where and ironically enough, it was the one thumbnail I forgot to actually do. But Batman Off-World is my pick of the week. What about you?
Yeah. I have to agree. It was a breath of fresh air. It was so ridiculously over the top and, and absolutely illogical, but completely fun, completely amazing. The art was fantastic. Color work was great. Um, part of it, I think the fact that I went out of my way not to read up on anything and just took it so I could be completely surprised. And yeah, it was just a heck of a lot of fun. All right, well, that's going to do it, everybody. We appreciate you joining us as always. Big week. Again, happy Thanksgiving to all that celebrate. Be sure you head over to YouTube if you're listening to the audio only version. I certainly appreciate that. But head over to YouTube, subscribe to Rocky's channel, Comic Space Boom! Once you're there, you know what to do. Ring the notification bell, leave some comments below. Be sure and subscribe so you don't miss any of the content. Conversely, if you're checking us out on YouTube, want to be sure not to miss out on any of the other Comic Source audio only content, or go back and listen to the thousands and thousands of episodes from the Comic Source that are out there already. Just go to wherever you get your podcast, do a search for the Comic Source, and subscribe. So we appreciate the support as always, everyone, and we will talk to you next time.
Catch you later.